Welcome everybody to first the consolation match and then the finals of this Grand Prix, the third leg of the FIDE Chess.com Women's Speed Chess Championship. Chiyu, I have the bracket up for everybody showing the two matches in the finale here. Katerina Lagno takes on Yifan in the final, and Alexander Kosteniuk first takes on Sara Kanemostaria in the third place match. What are your predictions for today?
Well, always asking me the hard questions right off the start.
I mean, I have
Um,
no choice. It's my job.
right. So I do think that Holy Fawn is going to play a very interesting match today against Lano. We heard her determination the other day. We also heard how excited Katarina is for Holy Fawn to be entering the chess scene again. So I definitely think they'll be very, very intense. But when it comes down to blitz, I do think that Katarina has a slight advantage over Holy Fawn, despite, Yifan being one of the best female chess players ever. This when it comes to blitz and when it comes to online chess, Katarina does have a very very nice like sort of base built already. She's doing really really well. We've seen her play some amazing games.
For sure. And I mean, honestly, we have the first and second seeds, the fourth and sixth seed. It's been a great Grand Prix thus far. To you, as we get set, get ready for the game to take off. I mean, I'm going to make my predictions. I'm really not confident in them based on how close I think these matches are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with. I don't know. I really
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't know.
I
I'm going
don't
to
know either.
go. It's tough. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Chat, let's hear who you think is going to win both the consolation match, third place match, and the championship match. Let us know. Give us your thoughts. I'm gonna go with. I don't know. I don't know.
Just don't know.
Gio.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you there. It's really really difficult, honestly. I think it's just gonna be so close today that it's going to come down to honestly a very very like tight match.
I agree. I'm going with Lachno and Sarah. I'm going to
Okay.
Katarina and Sarah. That's my choice. That's what I
All
have to
right.
go with today.
That
I
is.
feel like I'm going to go 0 for 2 now that I've said it out loud because these matches hard to predict with these players, but that's what I'm going with. Final answer.
Also feel like a part of it's gonna be commentators curse again.
Hey, don't blame me for everything that bad that happens to these players. It's usually my fault, but don't say it out loud. Isn't that the whole point of a commentator's curse? Wait, so if you said it about me, does that mean you just cursed your assumption about my predictions, in which case that they're going to work out?
Wait, this is way too dank for my 7 a.m. brain.
I mean, one of us has to be the five head, right?
Yeah, basically. But I can't even wrap my mind around which combination of words that was. So I'm just gonna say, best of luck to all of the female players today.
Yes, for sure. And we have things underway here, and we see that we have this c6 move, which is standard in the opening to play d5, exactly what Sarah just did here. And in playing d5, she's challenging the e4 pawn, but the e5 pawn also needs defense. So these kind of lines are pretty fascinating to me. This pawn on d5, generally speaking, needed to blockade this bishop on the light squares. There's also knight g5 ideas if you ever take on e4. So Sarah gets into a bit of a think here. Are you surprised to see Sarah spend 40 seconds, on the first 5 moves?
Um, not really, honestly. Not particularly. Um, you know, but I have to admit, move 3c6 is a little bit strange because I've never seen this move before. It feels like one of those things somebody would play, like one of my students would play, and I'd be like, no, you should develop your knight out. But when it's a 2400 player playing it, I'm like, oh.
You're like, yeah, it's fine, but it's good to be skeptical. So even if it
Mhm.
is a very strong player, sometimes the best players in the world, including Magnus Carlsen, play openings that probably aren't as sound as they should be. And this c6 line, I mean, it is exactly what we're looking at. You play c6, so you can play d5. But generally speaking, the problem with things like this is your center becomes a bit loose. So the d5 pawn already is quite vulnerable thanks to this pin on the knight f6. The e5 pawn also can be targeted thanks to the semi-open e5 where white's rook can quickly come to e1 after castling. So I do think that black has a lot to figure out. I'm concerned about her clock situation because she's already down over a minute in smooth 8 of this game.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just kind of surprised that if she's going to a line that's, obviously should have been prepared beforehand because otherwise she would have done whatever is the main line. I'm just surprised she didn't like, prepare it perhaps a little bit better because right now it's not looking like she's got a clear idea of what she's doing.
Yeah, she's already had to commit that pawn to d4 and Chiyu. We know once pawns move, they can't go back, so she's sort of exposed or weakened plenty of her light squares, and she does bring the queen out to a5 with check, trying to get out of this pin. But the bishop can drop back to d2, and I'm looking at bishop takes e6 right afterwards, and that gives black these double e pawns. I
Hmm.
honestly don't like how this opening has gone for Sarah. I think she would probably acknowledge as much, considering she is still down, and actually she's down even more time, a minute and a half at this point.
Yeah. And this is the part of the risk of playing an opening that's not very common because I'm sure Sarah knows like, Italian theory to the move 20, whatever. But whatever this is, I don't have any idea. I don't know if she has any idea. And it's just one of those things that might not be bad for Black, but it's definitely not going to be great for her without accurate play.
Yeah, and I think both of us, when we first just look at the position, if you threw us in, we didn't even see the opening of this game. We're like looking at these double e pawns, and they can't move. And that's one
Yeah.
of the essential problems with double pawns. Is well, first of all, they can't protect each other, and because they can't protect each other, we get to the second point is that they're harder to actually move because you can't put this e pawn, e6 pawn, I should say, there are two of them, this e pawn on f5 so that you can then play e4. No, no, these are stuck in place, and so this knight already has an outpost on the e4 square, and black is by no means lost. I think black has very good chances to stabilize and hold a position like this. I just get concerned when I see these double pawns here that white can just try to put pressure on them and black is stuck defending.
Hmm. Exactly. I do think that, after maybe a4, just try and white need to get like a little bit more space because there's actually not that many places to put the pieces. I Oh, f4 is interesting. Interesting, interesting.
Wow.
Um,
I guess there would be double pawns no more.
yeah, yeah. I was kind of expecting d takes e4, but I guess this works too.
Yeah, d takes e4 would have attacked the queen, but I guess Kosteniuk's saying, well, now that you kind of have to take on f4, otherwise you'll lose your pawn e5, I'll probably go ahead and take your e6 pawn. That's exactly what she does, saying your f4 pawn can be captured next, and actually that's what's about to be seen. So Kosteniuk looks like she's going up a pawn, but as we know in endgames, and yes, this is an endgame to you. I know you got on my case the other day about Robert. You don't seem to have a concise or uniform definition of endgames. This has the endgame feel to it, and in endgames, being up only one pawn sometimes is not enough, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just glad that you called this an end game, not a, queenless middle game, because at this point I can't even tell when's what.
Um, well, now that I called it an end game, I sort of regret it because now we're in agreement. Now it feels like we're going too smoothly. There's not a lot of drama for all of our viewers here.
Hmm.
But in all seriousness, now this it definitely feels like a position where if black is accurate here, I don't think black should be losing. But it's
Yeah.
hard, of course, to be accurate every single move in a chess game, especially in blitz when you're down a minute on the clock. And knight e7 is a very nice move because the c2 pawn on a light square. This is the problem with bishops against knights. Bishops control one color. The knights can hop from color to color, so the c2 pawn cannot be protected by a dark square bishop.
Yeah, no, and definitely. And if you see a move like, you might be wondering, is the d4 pawn hanging? And it is hanging. It is there's actually not like a direct trick to it. After rook takes d4, there's just rook takes c2. But the idea is that black's rook is going to be really, really active while white does get a pass pawn on d3.
Yeah, I don't know how they kind of weigh having a rook on the second or the seventh rank in this case, right? It's on c2, but it's the seventh rank from black's perspective. I don't know what exact value it's worth. I think it depends on the position. But in this one, it's definitely worth a pawn to have a rook on the c2 square, just to show that visibly. For well, we'll see it by the players themselves. Rook takes c2. If you get the second rook to f2, for instance, you're threatening the g2 pawn, and these rooks become lawnmowers on the second rank. And if this bishop moves away from c1, in comes rook c1 with checkmating ideas, thanks to the rooks being in such good coordination with one another.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one of those positions I have a very hard time in judging because I feel like, it's just the more games you play, the more you get used to these kind of things. But now I'm like just looking between Rook D7 and Bishop E1. Like Bishop E1 idea is very simple. First of all, your bishop's under attack, so you got to deal with it at some point, right? But if you play Bishop E1, you're also stopping Rook F2.
That's right. And she plays bishop e1, rook to d7. Chiyu's point was that you would lose this bishop, but after you give your king some love, you would win the knight on e7. And so that was an option. Tactically, it was okay for white. I think that Castagna being up a pawn like she has been for quite a while now, I guess the last four moves, but it's felt longer than that because they've been spending a lot of time on these last couple moves here. That playing bishop e1 makes sense given the trajectory of the game, but it's a move that can backfire because now black still has plenty of firepower to deliver an attack. Knight c6 played, and I'd be careful for ideas with rook c1, pinning that bishop, or somehow getting this rook on f7. I don't know how to do it, Chiyu, but if you can get this rook on f7 onto the c2 square, you're just hitting the g2 pawn, and there's no way for white to protect it.
Yeah, I mean, here I just think that, this is a, a really tough endgame now for white to play because your bishop is just so bad on e1.
And end games like this, okay, well now it's an even end game because the pawn b3 was just stolen. But what I was gonna say is, end games like this, you're often trying to figure out a plan, not just one move. Like h4, the point of h4 wasn't just to play h4. It's like, well, let me put my pawn on h5 and kind of restrict black's king. So if white can double her rooks on the 8th rank, rook h8 would be a checkmate because the pawn takes away the king's escape square. So that actually can be useful tactically at some moment. Black puts her rook on a4. So Chiyu, kind of what ideas are you coming up with for both sides as Sarah now has an extra 30 seconds almost?
Yeah, well, I just think that this is, oh my God. End games are hard. Like I say this all the time, and I'm just like, I am so bad at end games. I just kind of play the moves and I go through the motion of going like playing an end game that I really don't know. Because now you'll get rook a2, and Sarah's position is just more comfortable to play, in my opinion. And with also 20 seconds on the clock, I mean 20 seconds extra on the clock, a minute to 40 seconds. A lot of things are going to start happening, and we can't completely dismiss the chance of a blunder.
That's for sure. And well, now the rook's on g6, I'm actually going to walk back what I was about to say. But I was about to say that it felt like black's attacks were more immediate. Like the bishop on c3 was under attack, the pawn on a5, the pawn on d3 all feel more vulnerable than this a7, b7, knight c6 configuration. All that's protected over there for black. But now that this rook is on g6 and the bishop's on c3, there's clearly a threat on this g7 pawn. So now black's pieces are a bit tied down. And the extra 10 seconds, I think, now that the extra 10 seconds is down to about 5, it will play a part. However, I think that the worst is behind white, and her rook on g6 was working so well with that bishop on c3. Should be no problems.
Yeah, I do like to see that this game is coasting towards a draw. Um, we don't always see the most exciting games or the most exciting results, but a draw to start of the day is really, really good for Sarah, and it goes to show that she has very good chances against Alexandra Kostanuk.
She does indeed. And she had a tough go of things in the semifinal. It was really a one-sided matchup when she played against Yifan, but she's taken a day of rest as well. All the players did yesterday, and so did we as the commentators. And now I think she should. There it is, knight e5. And the point is, that if you take on e5, this rook takes back a5 and h5, both hanging. The problem with pushing your pawns very far is that they're hard to protect, and we're going to see this endgame where, well, black's going to be up a pawn here.
Whoa, this is not an end game you really want to get into down time, or in any situation really. But but the king is going to be stuck. I mean, black's king is going to be stuck to defending the g7 pawn, and there won't be actually any threat. So we're probably just going to see a bunch of rook moves and a draw.
Yeah, what black wants to do is push this a pawn all the way down to a3, which she can accomplish here. She is concerned about king f5, king g6, but as soon as that king gets to f5, then the black king could have gone to h7. So I think she can just start pushing the pawn. And she kind of needs to avoid a 3-time repetition at this point. Okay, she does it. And the big issue for black, is you can't kick the king off these h2 and g2 squares. A2? Definitely play a2 now. Because the king
Wait, this is just win?
is winning. And the reason it's winning is this black king will go all the way to b8. White's king is stuck on g2 and h2. This is an endgame I would love to show in more detail. So I may even save this because the next game will start quickly, but we'll maybe analyze it a little bit when the next game begins. But actually, honestly, all you need to analyze is being shown right now, because if this rook ever leaves the a file, the black rook leaves a1 and the pawn promotes. And so the rook is stuck and in comes the king.
Gary just pointed out that Robert Hess's passion is endgames.
I do love me a good endgame, that's for sure. And king b4, so king b3, the rook has to check the king off from protecting this pawn. So the king starts going towards the g4 pawn. Here it comes. And you should be able to zugzwang here. King has to stay on h2 and g2. King f4, king g5. Now the king has to go to h2, and you can even move your rook into the game. So she's going to do that. Rook d1, rook d4, and rook takes g4 check.
Wait.
And she's going to win h5.
This is way too dank. I literally am like waking up in the morning and I'm just seeing, a grandmaster level endgame played out in front of me. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even know at what point White went wrong. But obviously it was when they gave up the... it started going downhill when it started giving up the A pawn. And basically, yeah, you will be suffering in those kind of endgames, and you can only draw if you have the most accurate play, which with 8 seconds on the clock, when she lost the pawn, it's not going to happen.
That's right. It's just, the thing is, even letting the black king out is a risky decision, and with 8 seconds on your clock, you don't have time to say, wait, can I actually let the king out here, or do I have to keep it stuck on the 8th rank? And Sarah's shown perfect technique, honestly.
Yes. This has inspired me to actually go study some more endgames, Robert.
Hey, I mean, these players are really phenomenal, and these endgames are tricky. I always tell people that. You say, hey, there are only 6 pieces remaining. This should be easy, right? No, it's not going to be easy. And chess is just really a difficult game, plenty of nuances. And while this endgame ended up being winning, if that pawn structure was a little bit different, instead of g4 and h5 was g4 and h3, we may have had a different story here.
Is this possibly the first game in this tournament so far that's gone beyond 100 moves?
It certainly feels like one of the rare occasions where the game has gone so long. And also, Sarah only has 3 seconds left, so I don't even want to call this game. Oh gosh!
Wait, she's got like mate in, the 1 second on the clock. Oh my god!
Play rook e1 check. Oh, if I were Kostennik, I would have played rook e1 check because I think you could have flagged Sarah. So Sarah ends up winning that game. Oh, it looks like a sigh of relief there. Let's pull up that position just quickly, the end position. And the reason why I said rook to a1 check, this was not the really high-level endgame technique I want to show, is because black had 1.9 seconds left. So if she was holding her rook and not her king, rook e1 check forces the king move, and you're losing no matter what, so you can flag your opponents, the dirty flag. I think that's what she should have gone for.
Robert, you're giving everybody bad ideas.
I think it's in my job description to give chess ideas, not necessarily good chess ideas.
Robert Hess. Learning bullet chess with Robert Hess.
That sounds like a terrible idea. But anyway, we have spent more than half of the time on that first game, or approximately 15 minutes on one game, which means that this may be our final game if we have another 110 plus move affair.
I haven't seen 110 move games very often, and it's really it's sometimes like a little bit shocking when you see it in Blitz, because you would assume they just don't have enough time to play that many moves, but they definitely do, and I think that game was really nice.
Yeah, that was some great technique by Sarah. Of course, Kostennik, she misplayed things. There was some time trouble, and in general at the highest levels in chess, you needed a mistake from your opponent, well, at least one, if you're going to win a game, because that's how strong these players are. If they have a classical time control that's hours on the clock, they really can dive deeply, move after move, it's going to be hard to win these chess games. That's why you see so many draws at the highest level. But in blitz and rapid chess, and especially bullet chess, many more decisive games.
Definitely. This is just, once again, it's a very nice position for Sarah, I think. It's just one of those positions where white, there's nothing you can do as black, and you just sort of move pieces around for a bit.
Yeah, it's a sort of sad state of affairs, but here comes that knight to d6, so she's trying to prove us both wrong, where I agree with you, white's knight on c5 looks excellent, In a position like this that's so close, Chiyu, I feel like people struggle to evaluate these things, myself included. So, kind of, it's coming up with plans while also anticipating your opponent's strategies. So, speaking of which, what plans would you aim for white and similarly for black?
This is too much thinking for 7 a.m. Well, I think that I don't even have experience playing this kind of position that often because it is a d4 and I'm primarily an e4 player. Okay, well, after g5, I think this makes my life a little bit easier. I feel like the king side is going to be weak no matter what happens. So I think now is a good time for me to switch my attention to the king side, potentially play like maybe king to h1, then maybe try to push h4. That sounds like actually it's just too much because I'm knight g4. But I think finding a plan here for white is going to be slightly difficult.
It's funny because when you see move like g5, you tend to have this visceral reaction of, oh, whoa, whoa, what is that about? That looks way too risky. But I think that Kostenia, the chess queen, she's claiming, look at how strong my pieces are on the king side. My king is actually quite safe. And perhaps it's the white king that's going to become vulnerable after a rook h8, h5, h4 type of maneuver. And f3 is really smart because you were the first to point out potential king side attacks. Well, sometimes you blow up in the center to kind of initiate some of the play. And e4 is going to be so difficult to accomplish, Chiyu. I actually don't know if we'll ever see that move.
Yeah, and as this position goes into black's favor, it's going to be also like a very, very intense blitz match because both players seem to be fairly well-rounded and quite even in terms of strength. So it's going to be a matter of who's able to blunder less as we go into this.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw my arrows in the e4 square, but I was just trying to point out that if that is white's idea, what the point of f3, if that was to play at e4, good luck to you. Because how many attacks does black have in the e4 square? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attacks.
Yeah. A lot. That's actually almost all of the pieces. She just needs to play queen e6, rook e7, and then rook e8 to get all 7. So that would be pretty cool. But, this is white only has a very temporary threat of an attack with rook takes c6. That's the idea here. But black can easily stop that with either queen b7 or knight c4. There's just so many things. And then this e3 pawn is just going to be really, really weak for the rest of the game. Okay, well, b5 is a hot take on this because now the knight gets to c5, and black is literally saying, I don't care if your knight gets an outpost. I don't care if your knight can go to d3 and then e5. It's just this is good for black, and this is good. Well, I don't know about that after b takes.
Yeah, this really interesting dynamic here. Giving up control of that outpost square on c5 permanently. And when I look at this position, Chiyu, one of the deeper concepts I'm trying to come up with is, can I trade a pair of knights and then put my new knight on c5? So, can I just get rid of the knight on f6 and knight on c5? And the reason I'm saying that is because black has a light squared bishop. And the bishops are great compared to knights because they're long-range pieces. This bishop on g6 stops white's pieces from going to b1. That's crazy. That's really a great sniper there. Mm-hmm. The issue with the bishop is it can only stay on its own color, so the light squares. So we'll never be able to kick out a knight on c5, a knight on e5, a knight on f4, whatever the square is that's a dark square. It can't really compete with that knight. So g4 is a great move to open up the position, but that's a long-term dynamic that I'm looking for.
Yeah. Once again, I think white had a good chance there, but g4 was great because now you'll never push e4. All right.
So queen takes a5. That's a pawn, but how do you feel about the potential of black's attack? If we don't trade queens, I don't think you should, and to replace queen e7 and h4 coming, is black's attack legitimate, or is white just stealing the pawn and living to tell the tale?
I would say, if it was a classical game, I would have a completely different take on this. But because it's blitz, I'm going to say this is going to work for black. That's what I'm going to say. Because once again, if you're trying to win in a blitz game, you go for the attack and your opponent won't be able to defend perfectly.
Completely agreed. And when we look at this position, before we start using our chess brain, we just use our eyes and we're like, wait a sec, white's king looks a bit exposed. I know we talked about how black's king side doesn't really have pawns in front of it either, but I'm looking at a rook h8. Ooh, knight takes e3. That's a pawn that if you can steal that and not fall victim to some kind of pin with rook e2, or sorry, rook c3 coming, immediately putting pressure on it, that's a good pawn to steal. But actually, how does black plan to keep this? Queen g5, I guess, would be the way to do so. So
Yeah, maybe queen f4 now, just swap up the queen so you don't get any more of an attack going.
ooh, I really like that move. I think that a lot of people would be looking how to pressurize this knight on e3. Queen f4, swapping queens and saying, and there she does it. The a3 pawn, which is going to go to a4, and then a5, and then a6, if you're not careful. That's an outside passed pawn, so we have even material. But look at black's extra pawn. It's completely cemented, blockaded by this knight on c5. So Chiyu, I love that move, queen f4. That was really wise of you to just say, let's get those off the board, not worry about an attack. And I'm guessing, but I don't want to speak for you, now you're liking white's chances?
I'm actually still liking black chances. Just because queens are off the board doesn't mean the attack is over.
So you're saying, you're saying it's not an endgame. That's what you're saying.
No, it's an endgame, but
What?
you can attack in an endgame.
Huh? What? I thought you're coming to my side of things here.
No. I think this is still an endgame. I just think that you can also attack in an endgame. There's no reason that there's no tactics. There won't be tactics in an endgame.
This is not an endgame. This is a queenless middle game with attacking chances for black.
Okay, I believe you. I believe you. You're the expert here.
No. We can call it an endgame. But anyway, continue your point. Sorry.
Yeah, but this is just. I was just gonna say you can play like bishop f5, king h6, maybe put your rooks down. There's a lot of things going on here. But if you think it's a queenless middle game, I will believe you.
No, I think you're right, though. It's a good point that you're making, that even in endgames, you shouldn't just think that your king is safe. It's not Your king's not inherently safe without queens on the board. Look at this king on well, the pawn on h3 is gone. I was just ruined my point. I was going to say that with that pawn on h3, there were some checkmating possibilities, and even without that pawn, there still can be some of that. However, I'm looking at some knight d7 check, knight to e5. I'm actually not sure from a practical point of view whose chances I prefer here. The rook e7 is a good move. I really like it.
We just both agree that this is now an endgame.
I'm willing to negotiate more than I would in other. No, this is an endgame. I'm with you.
Okay.
And watch out, this knight on a3 was hanging. I didn't even notice that knight was hanging because I was looking at how to protect the c6 pawn, but that knight was under attack by this rook on g3. So rook came to c7. Chiyu, that attacks this pony on c6, and the d4 pawn looks like it's going down here.
Yeah, well, we're gonna see knight e5, and after knight takes d4, maybe rook c3. Yep. We got that. Well, actually, I don't even know how Sarah plans on defending her knight.
It's already defended, and I was just showing that. You can, if black had a free move, rook takes c5 is made by knight d7 check. And that's useful for people who are watching to recognize, and okay, she takes on g6, probably trying to liquidate and head towards the split of the point, but actually black's better here. You can't go king g1 because knight e2 check. You couldn't go king e3 because knight f5. Black is stealing this pawn, and so this is going to be a not that easy endgame, for an endgame keyword there, for white to hold. But I think that fork, that possibility of fork, is a good illustration of how pieces can be defended without a piece immediately defending it.
Wow.
Rook g5, rook e5 check, this king f3. Watch out for this king on f1. We talked about in endgames there can be an attack. Don't invite that king to f1. Excuse me, to f3.
Oh, I can just see so many ways for white to go wrong in this position.
Oh, king f3?
King one only move, basically.
Oh gosh, that's like a situation that really worries me here. I mean, even d4, push, there she does it. Maybe knight h4 check, rook h4, rook takes e2 was possible there. That actually may have been the easiest way. Because now king e4?
Well, maybe... I was going to suggest after knight c3, can you really take on d4?
Oh, that's a good question. Because then there's king e3.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a good question to ask white, right? And with the clock ticking down, anything can happen. Okay.
No, I really liked your move there. Knight c3 is trickier.
Yeah, well, my voice apparently doesn't sound awake, but at least my brain is half awake.
And that was a really good moment there, why you couldn't take on d4. Black still has great chances here, Kostyniak, to win this game, especially rook h1. The rook's on the short side. The rook needs to be on the long side. Rook a8. Bring that rook over.
Oh my god, this is winning for black.
Yeah, this is not cutting it. Now go rook h7, rook f7 check. You just check the king off the f-file. Then you just build a bridge and you win. Oh gosh, this is what happens in blitz games. We saw this happen in the first game. It seems like a comeback here by Kostyniak in the second. And...
Well, this is the famous Lucina endgame. The one thing I do know about endgames.
You know how to build the bridge?
Yeah, I know how to build the bridge. It's like what they teach you when you're like, starting out in chess, like 6 years old, 5 years old, and it's like, oh, this is how you play it,
Yeah.
and you just memorize it, and you practice it 5 times, and then you never see it again. But I'm very, very glad to see it over a blitz game.
I showed it just on the stream just to get everybody to understand what the point was, to block the rook's checks that you can promote on d1 after that. Let's go to the current game here. So Sara missed an opportunity there to hold that game. I've got to give credit to Kostennik there, because just like the first game where Sara had an extra pawn and started increasing the pressure, there Kostennik did the same. It's actually just been a role reversal from game 1 to game 2.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And, these end games are just so high quality. Like, a game is high quality when you go from the opening into the middle game and then into the end game. Like, you just know that the natural flow of the game has been so, so good. And it's not like they swapped off queens on move 9 or something. But
yeah, it's been really excellent technique by the side that's been pressing. So as we continue this match, this is the last game, unless they draw or something, some blunders a piece in the next 2 minutes. This will be the final game of the 5+1 portion of things. But I was going to say that it's going to show that both sides are ready to convert their advantages, and it's up to the defensive side to really be up to the task of, hey, wait a second, I know I'm worse here, but with accurate play I should hold. And by the way, this position for Sara, bishop g5, the threat is knight to c5, the bishop on e3 is pinned, and this pawn on c4 can be captured. So immediately there's attacked here. And so, speaking of defending, you need to find a way to defend that pawn.
yeah, well, this white's attack was feeling a little bit forced, in my opinion. Like pawns were just going up the board, and b3 has been played just to protect c4, so that when now black plays bishop takes c3, can take with the queen and not lose the pawn on c4. Since you really don't want to play f takes because you'll get the double pawns on the e file. But this also just, brings yourself open to attacks from black with a5, and a4 is played to stop a4 by black herself. So we're going to get a really, really intense, I think, pawn storm in this game.
Yeah, these kind of positions are pretty funny, because you tend not to want to push pawns in front of your own king, and Kostennik was willing to do so in this game, because actually, how does black break through? You'd want to play maybe c6 and b5, but because there's the presence of this pawn in c4, the double pawns are actually helpful in shielding white's king. So I know that these stacked pawns get a bad reputation. Sometimes they're very useful because inherently, whenever you have double pawns, it's an open line for your rook. So because there's no d-pawn, that d-pawn's double in the c-file, here's the rook on d1 is actually staring down the d-file, more space for white's pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, pawns get pushed up the board. That's what you do when you castle on opposite sides of the board, for everybody here. You gotta go for the attack, otherwise it's just like signing yourself up for a very painful kind of like loss.
Well, this f4 move was really committal. So speaking of pawns going up the board, that's a pawn move that can't come back. It was captured. So what do you make of now this isolated pawn on e4 and of black's defensive journey here? Because the e5 square is one that is pretty juicy, and the queen can go there right now if you want.
Yeah, well, I do think that if queen e5 is probably the best idea here, because you just want to swap off the queens. Once again, if you're at the risk of getting an attack, you just swap off the queens. That's like the #1 principle I live by.
That seems like a good one. I know you're a little afraid of endgames, but it sounds like you're more afraid of attacks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not really necessarily afraid of endgames. It's just that if I go into endgame, as far as my game is going to be concerned, it probably won't go very well for me. But if I get attacked, I know it 100% will not go well for me. So I think it's just a trade-off here for me at this point.
Every time we've seen endgame, you're like, Robert, now it's your responsibility. But then when we see an attacking position, you're like, oh, let me have this. You're going to rub your hands together. You're like, let me go play g5, break it open. So I sense your style here. Hey, look what just happened. You must be thrilled.
Queens are off the board. This is a queenless. Is this a queenless middle game or an end
this feels
game?
more like an endgame to me.
Okay, so at some point, if there are 3 minor pieces and 2 rooks on the board, that's a queenless middle game. Like,
it's honestly just a feel at this point. There's no set definition in my eyes. It's like, what does the position feel like? And here it feels like an endgame.
All right. Well, we need to like publish a book called Robert Hess's Feel of Endgames, where we have all the different positions, and it's like this was an endgame, but that was not.
We're gonna have an encyclopedia of endgames with a glossary at the front. That's an index of terms, and that's gonna be really just the definition of endgame will probably take up about 10 pages.
Yeah.
And this endgame is certainly favorable for black because you have an uncompromised pawn structure. Now is where the double pawns are actually a burden rather than a blessing. Because you look at them here on the queen side, you have a 4-on-3 pawn majority in number only. Because how are you going to create a passed pawn? Black already has a passed pawn on e5. To get a passed pawn for white, good luck to you. Can't really do it with the double pawns.
You know what would be interesting here?
Rook d4, I'm guessing, is you're going to say?
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say that, but h6 is played. There's just so much tactics in this position. It's kind of shocking, honestly.
Yeah, because you look at it at least when you hear about an endgame, you're like, okay, now it's just technical part. It's like, wait, that little decision here will have big consequences. And well, Chi, speaking of consequential decisions, with these pawns traded, now black still has the extra pawn if you cut the board in half, and it's a very clear extra pawn, whereas white's extra pawn doesn't even look like one because of the stack pawn situation.
Wait, sorry.
Yeah.
Extra pawn, but they're not actually extra pawns.
No.
They're just the pawn majorities, right?
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. No, I was just talking about me a moment there to comprehend it. But,
You're like, wait. I thought I did a quick count, and both sides have 5 pawns. So, Robert, what are you talking about there? You're absolutely right. The material is even, but in number only, right? In feel, black kind of has an extra pawn. At least when I look at this position, I sort of think about it like that, where I have a passed pawn that can actually be pushed, and white's extra pawn is on the C file, but it's a double pawn that you can't really start mobilizing those things, and so it just feels like black has an easy advantage here, and Sarah's going to look to press it.
Do you think that they'll play like another set of endgames in like the 3+1 and the bullet as well? Because I think that'll be really interesting. Like endgame technique is so hard. The less time I have,
Very
the
true.
more scuffed my endgames become.
Did you not get the memo though? This is an endgames only match. So
Right. Sorry, my bad. Just
they're-
like how yesterday was a Rai Lopez only match.
right? Just on a given day, the situation changes. Ooh, look at this, knight e4 check. If you trade, white would win the e3 pawn. But after knight e4, this king to f5, ignoring the threat on the knight, and then forking, if you will, the rook and the knight on g4 and e4. So that actually was a really nice move, e3, well timed. And I'm scared of this pawn. If I'm Kostenik, I'm real worried here.
I would have maybe played rook to f3.
Oh,
Just to be able to like put some pressure on the pawn. Because now that your rook's on g4, it's just like not in a very good position to stop the e pawn.
although how do you get that pawn going? Because if you move the knight away from c5, there's rook e4 check. So she kind of has frozen.
Oh, maybe just rook d2, like bring your rook back. I mean,
Yeah,
sorry,
that looks-
black needs to bring her rook down. Oh, or just defend g6. That works too.
So now she's freeing up her king, in a sense. And that, like, if rook g5, there's king to f4? I say that with, like, a question in my voice, because I'm worried about this knight on c5 being a little loose over here.
Yeah.
So, like, I'll just show this on the board quickly. Rook g5, king f4, knight e2 check. There's knight c5 still under attack, so king f3 to attack the knight on e2. Knight g1 check. King f2, knight h3 check. And that looks like it wins this knight, but then this e-pawn will start rolling after king f1. So I'm going to go back to the live position. It just goes to show that winning material is not all that's important here. And Sarah brings her king in to f4. And here comes king f3. And if knight g1, here comes king f2. And after knight h3, there goes king f1. And we'll see that exact line unfold where black's e-pawn is probably worth this giving up his knight in c5.
Yep. Okay, so this looks like, if the king goes to f1, you've got... I think white has very limited choices in this position.
Yeah,
Because otherwise you'll get... Okay, well, at least black cannot push e2. But if you go rook g2 now with like the idea of trying to repeat the position, we might just see king f3, and then you'll have to move your rook, and that will give black the time she needs to play e2. So I think white has definitely somehow this is not looking too good.
It's not because you can't really coordinate just two pieces, right? It's weird. You can coordinate pieces when there are a bunch of them, but here it's hard because just the one king can attack your pieces, and all of a sudden they have to start moving. The knight came to g5, and king f2. There will be knight h3 check back. That's the point, that you can't just kick the rook and push your pawn because knight h3 comes back, protecting the rook and giving the king a check. So you just have to do a little bit more here. So let's think about this. Rook to f6 was the idea is now rook f1 check, trading off the rooks, and it's because king to b2, avoiding the check there.
Oh, maybe just king d2 now. Like white doesn't even have knight f3 anymore, so you can play king d2 quite literally and just push e2 e1.
Look at you, and she does it. She does it. She plays king e2. You don't have e4. You don't have f3. The knight can't give a check. If rook g2, there's simply e2, and that pawn is promoting, and the king is an aggressive piece. It's a weapon in the endgame. I think we're going to see a win in just a few seconds now.
Wow, look at that.
Well, look at that. We see a win for Sarah, and with that victory, she goes up 2-1, and that is the end of the 5+1. Are you surprised at all by Sarah's lead, or do you think that, hey, this is still anybody's match and Sarah's just out to a good start?
I think that Sarah has very, very good chances, but as we've seen, it's been one win, one loss, one win, one loss. Maybe we'll see a few more of that kind of trend. So it's actually kind of interesting, because I definitely feel like Sarah's playing well, but then Alexandra's also playing well, and it's just like at this point, it's who's playing these end games more accurately.
And we've seen something a bit unique for high-level chess. The 3 games have been played, and all 3 games have seen a win for black. So the player with the second move, right? White has the first move advantage. Black has won all 3 games. So interesting to note that the endgame technique has been phenomenal for the side that's been pressing. So we'll see as we go forward if these players can defend a little bit more accurately. But I've been really, this is some high-level chess that we're seeing here. Chiyu, you and I are going to take a break. We'll be back soon with the 3+1 time control of this FIDE Chess.com Women's Speed Chess Championship match. Need to work on that pronunciation there.
Good.
See you soon, everybody. We'll be back shortly. And we return. Just wanted to show everybody the bracket once more, how we got here. You see Alexander Kostenyuk and Sara Karamosria there in the third place match. And later today, we will have Katerina Lagno taking on Yifan in the championship match. So far, 2-1 in Sara's favor. We will have more games going in very shortly. I just want to come back to this first endgame we saw, Chiyu, where there was this rook on a7 trailing this pawn on a2 with the black rook in front of that pawn. And I just wanted to show everybody a little bit about this position. Because after king to b8, this rook needs to stay on the a file. If the rook moved, let's say taking what looks like a free pawn, that frees up the black rook to a square like b1, and then the pawn can promote. So white needs to stay behind this pawn, and that's why she played rook to a3. And just an important point about this endgame is that the king needs to stay on g2 and h2, because as soon as you go king f2, this pawn is under attack if the rook moves. However, this king will be in the same line as the rook, so rook to h1 would actually win the game for black, because I'm threatening to queen. My pawn can promote with the protection of the rook, and so the only way to stop it is by capturing it, and rook h2 check happens, where you win this rook on a2. So that was a little endgame lesson. We are back to the action, because they're taking it off. Chiyu, we see a game with d4 and now early bishop b4 check and knight b to d2. So what's your feeling about this opening?
Well, I do think that they're playing this really, really fast, which I like to see, because with 3+1, you don't really have time to be, going slow in the end game. So Queen's Indian defense, really standard stuff. It's been played many, many times. A lot of people have played it before. Sara and Kostenyuk in this game. Usually the ideas are quite simple. Once again, we'll see that, the pawn majority on the queen side for black, the pawn majority on the king side for white. Decent piece activity, but for both. And this knight f3 to e5, the d3 idea is actually going to get the knights into a pretty good spot in the center.
And we see the move c5 played, and everything you're saying is true, Chiyu, that if you cut the board in half, the players have different pawn advantages. Here, actually, black has the c5 and d5 pawns, which look quite menacing, but they can also be quite vulnerable. I mean, there's this bishop g5 moves says, wait a sec, your d5 pawn may lose some of its defense, and she takes on f6, and the c5 and d5 pawns are called hanging pawns, because they're pretty exposed to the enemy, but they also can be strong in the sense that they are taking control of some very important squares. So, Chiyu, in your experience, facing or with the hanging pawns, do you prefer to play with them or against them?
This is actually a really, really good question. I think sometimes that I'm really, really bad at handling hanging pawn positions as the side with them, because I just tend to lose the pawns. But I think very specifically for this position, I think I like black more. Like, I like the hanging pawns because I have the pair of bishops. White not having the bishop on b2 is actually really going to impact her, because part of the idea of play against hanging pawns is keeping the minor pieces on so you can attack it. So in this case, where actually that's not even correct. That depends too on the position. It's just hanging pawns are so difficult to play. But I definitely do like having, when I'm playing against hanging pawns, I do like having the pair of bishops. So yeah. I would say this is better for black.
Well, I don't think you were entirely wrong with that statement. It is situation dependent. You're right to clarify that. But having more pieces on the board can be helpful in piling up against the pawns. And black in this position, it doesn't even look like there's any problem, because there's a bishop on f8 protecting a pawn. So there's a queen and a rook lined up against it, but they're, in a sense, overpowered by a lone bishop, because their attack is useless, as you're never going to take on c5 and lose your queen for that bishop. So that's a big problem for white. Black's pieces are now in great squares, and we've already seen 3 victories in 3 games for the side with the black pieces. Are we looking at number 4 here?
We very well might be. I like 94. You're really putting your knight somewhere nice, and you're also defending c5. It's just, wow. I think this position is everything you want out of a hanging pawn structure for black.
If you can push your hanging pawns without any sort of consequence, that's actually a big deal. And the reason why that is the case is when this pawn's on d5, it takes away the e4 and c4 squares from white. Now having the pawn d4, what white wants to do is get a knight into c4, but it was too long of a journey. And so Sara plays e3, and that was me accidentally clicking on the square. Knight c3 was played, but I was looking at pawn takes e3 anyway, just weakening white's structure. Instead, Kostenyuk plops her knight into c3, bishop e4. I mean, the pieces are working so well together for black.
Hmm. Yeah, just play rook d8, I think, because if you play e takes d4 after, you've got c takes d4. I mean, I don't even know why I said that whole line out. There was not like anything spectacular about it. It just defends the pawn.
Well, I think it's still a good illustration for our viewers here because sometimes, and this happens often, you forget how many pieces are defending a square or like the value of the piece of protecting. Queen b7 played, ignoring the defense there, and so can White not just take this? And there it is.
Okay, okay. Wait, whoa. I said that because like I was just like, this is a logical move to say, and Black didn't play it. Now she can take on d4, and I'm like, huh, interesting.
I think I get her plan though. I think Astenik is willing to give up the pawn to trade the light square bishops, and if knight takes g2, knight e4 to knight g5. This is actually a very common sort of tactic when your opponent has a fianchetto bishop. If you can remove that piece, White's king is far less safe. And once his knight gets to g5, there are tactics on f3 and h3, and the White king is really feeling drafty over here.
Right. I do think it's a decision between, I mean, it's a pawn sacrifice at the end of the day. It's a decision for me where I'm not a fan of like sacrificing pieces. I really like having all of my pawns. I like having everything, but of course this tactical idea is really, really strong. We can see something like bishop c5 here, maybe just pinning the knight to the pawn.
Oh, that was definitely a nice move to consider. Knight g5, I think, is the sort of immediate threat of knight h3 check is so tempting. It's hard to pass up on. But queen g4, I mean, it kind of looks like you're barely holding on for White, because if I can attack this knight on d4, I'm going to take it and bring my knight to f3. But for now, at least, it does seem like White has everything kept together well. I would look at rook to d8 and then the e rook. Okay, she takes on e1 and then it's going to play rook d8. That's actually just
wow. Isn't this looks like just a winning tactic?
Okay, so knight h4. Wait. No, I don't think you have to. Never mind. Queen b4.
Queen b4, and then this bishop b2, because then we have like a pin going across the entire board. Wow, just look at the placement of the pieces.
That's tough to me. So knight h4 to f5 feels like the only move to not lose a piece here. And I actually really like that move because, well, you only have 20 seconds. Oh, I guess it doesn't matter. You just take on d. Of course, you just take on d4 next.
Ooh, bishop takes f2.
Thank you for your queen. Oh. We both had the same reaction. However, that still was a good move, even though she had better, because she's protecting this bishop on d4. She is up a piece, and now she's up a second piece.
Oh my god, wow. Okay, and still resigned. Okay, well, the fossil there would have been really, really cute. The discover attack would have been really nice, but it's okay. We can't always win queens.
We do have 4 straight victories for the side with the black pieces. So what do you think is going on in this match that is making that happen? I'm
not sure, but we're getting a Spanish, and I am happy.
You have said many times that if we have a Spanish in the Royal Lopez, the opening, that Chiyu Zhou is a happy camper. So we have definitely. It. Although this is sort of an obscure one, isn't it? I mean, the black pawn's on b4, the knight's on a5. So since you're such a fan of this opening, well, not this specific line, but the opening more generally, tell everybody, like, what are your thoughts about this position?
Well, I definitely do think that black actually comes out decently. I think we've seen this quite a bit in the previous match from 2 days ago, the one between Katarina and her opponent, because this was very similar to that. This is called the Morphe, I think, the Morphe line of the Rai Lopez. So it's definitely very, very double-edged, and it really depends on how each side takes tactics in the middle game, because it's a very open position, which is a bit rare straight out of the Spanish, since you usually get that locked central pawn structure. Yeah,
somehow this doesn't have the vibe of a Spanish, where if you just threw us in this position had we not seen the opening, you'd be like, wait, this from the Spanish? Wait, what? We had locked up positions, like you're saying. Here it's wide open, and I'm not even sure which side I'd rather play with, because it's one of those positions where the dynamics are totally different. Where I'm looking down the d file, I'm like, wait, isn't that just a weak pawn that's going to be backward forever? And then I'm looking, wait, isn't that a great bishop on g7 that's going to be strong forever? So you look at the different elements here. Different pieces have, of course, different strengths. I think d6 now or queen c7 both make sense to protect the c5 pawn. Don't want to hang that. So what do you make of the long-term potential for white and for black?
Well, in this position very specifically, the bishop on a2 is going to be very strong. The knight on a5 is, just pressuring there. I think the knight has to go back and play at some point, but the d6, sorry, I mean the pawn will try to push d5, but black probably will not be able to and have to settle with d6 for now, especially because if you play bishop e7, white can try something like your c5 pawn is actually just hanging, so just play d6, and then that will be a backwards pawn.
Yeah, I kind of have the same mindset as you do, where I'm looking from piece to piece. Like bishop e7 is the move I want to play, and I'm like, wait, I'm attacking e4. It looks like a great development. Oh, well then I lose c5, so probably right now can't do that. d6, it's a hard move to play, honestly, and that's why it wasn't played. Just inviting your pawn to a potentially vulnerable square, and I think that she was able to develop the bishop as you wanted to see happen without pushing this pawn yet, which means she may be able to play rook d8 and d5 in one turn. So somehow with this move order, she may have been able to save a tempo, and that actually could be very useful as the game continues.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Well, I mean, basically, white's going to have a nice position once the knights get out of the second rank. That's what I'm going to say about this. Because right now, white's knights aren't doing much on d2 and e2, but they can very potentially go to f4, and maybe after queen c2, you can play knight to c4 at some point as well.
So those knights are cramping, not I won't say your style, but white's position.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that was a big decision there, and I don't think it's a bad one. But Chi, what do you make of that? Where she took on b4 to kind of alleviate some of the pressure, and that way this knight can move from e2. But that bishop on g7 is looking even stronger now.
I like it for the fact that, first of all, you're like alleviating pressure, right? And attacking c5, but it definitely does make the bishop on g7 a bit more of a monster.
And I'm already looking at moves like c4 here, because you were talking that bishop on a2, and I respect that bishop. She does play c4, Dasara here, and she says, hey, let me ask you, Chiyu, and she's asking you directly, by the way, with this move. How do you feel about that bishop on a2? Tell me more.
Tell me more. Well, it's looking decidedly worse every single move we make.
And here comes d5. So actually, your plan for black has shown up here. And very importantly, this knight on d2, as you said, you didn't want it there. And why did you not want it there? The rook wanted the open file. Now the rook is not attacking d5. Black was able to trade off her worst pawn. And while black has split pawns on the queen side, right? They can't protect one another. So much more space. What a beautiful position.
Yeah, and black is just winning. Well, knight takes e3. I don't know if it's going to win a pawn, but it could potentially be a pawn.
Yeah, at the very least, it leaves white with an isolated pawn on e3, and only black will have a dark square bishop. I would take on e3 and ask questions later, because it just looks like the move you have to play. I don't want to see bishop d4 happen. I really don't want to trade off dark square bishops. The bishop on g7 is important, not just for attacking down the length of the diagonal, but also protecting the king.
Yeah, definitely. And, you don't even have to commit to something like bishop takes e4. You can just play... Oh, and bishop takes e4 was committed. Woo!
She was going for the very quick, let me steal a pawn.
Oh, this is another minor piece of rook endgame.
Oh, but there was a blundered exchange there.
No, wait, no, it's okay. It's a pin. I think she did blunder it, though. I think she blundered it, and she was just lucky that there was this tactic.
Yeah, the rook being on d1 is helpful, but then the rook take. So now the knights are being trained. The c4 pawn falls. This is not what Sarah wanted. This was definitely a blunder. She was able to survive and not lose the exchange, but she lost her very important c-pawn that should have pushed to c3.
Oh, wait, what? Oh, bishop takes f7. But what? Wait, whoa.
And we see
just anything there. Like, there's also bishop takes f7, which is...
We see the first victory for the player with the white pieces, and bishop e5 was just a howler of a move. The bishop is lost on e5, as you were saying, bishop takes f7 check, the rook on c6 was hanging. Bishop e5 is one of those moves that's inexcusable, and also just like from your own point of view, you kind of smack your head, you face palm, and you're like, okay, let's just forget about that game, because I had a huge advantage. In the matter of 5 moves, I went from big lead to, oops, there goes my bishop.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of what happens when you blunder once. If you blunder once and your opponent sees it, and it happens, right? Like, luckily for Sarah, she did not lose an exchange on that move, but chess doesn't give you that many chances with these kind of blunders. So unfortunately, she was missing tactics near the end there, and I'm not sure. Like we obviously don't know what exactly was going through her mind. Might have been the time pressure, might have been the nature of how these games go. But that was definitely a huge blow.
Yeah, it's good. It's going to be really difficult game there to kind of come back from, just because psychologically she was outplaying Castano throughout that game.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the obscure opening, offbeat, and that just. I mean, I'm surprised by it. And when I said it was inexcusable, I mean in a match like this. Obviously, these mistakes happen all the time. I blunder. Just last night, I was blundering pieces away when I was playing online. These things, of course, are common occurrences. But when you're playing a tight match like this, and you have, oh, I never started the new clock. Ah,
It's all right, don't worry, don't worry. So for everybody here, we are in the 3+1 time format, not the 5+1 time format. But guys, don't worry about it.
yeah, that I just noticed that. I mean, I'm trying, doing the commentary, producing. Sometimes you forget little things like that. I will update that right now.
Yeah, I mean, Robert is doing a very, very good job of commentating at the same time while handling everything, switching the cameras. He's just doing a very amazing job overall. And don't even forget, it's not even 9 a.m. yet.
And
And he's already produced a whole show.
Of course, we're getting yup clocks. We deserve them. Well, I deserve them. And now I fixed that. Sorry about that, everybody. Can focus back on the chessboard here. The last move play was knight to d5. And I'm looking at this position where Sarah's queen is aiming at some of the weak pawns on the queen side. But this knight on d5 is particularly strong, hitting e3, hitting c3, and the pawn on b2 is also under attack. So whose side would you rather have here? I kind of like white because of the bad pawn structure, but I also love the bishop. So I'm conflicted. I'm tossing the question over to you.
I mean, okay, so the way whenever I look at these kind of positions, I just start thinking about what would I prefer in the end game. And I think pair bishops will come out to be really important in the end game. So I'm going to say I like black more.
Okay. And we saw a pawn trade, not 1-for-1 directly, but the pawn b2 was captured, the pawn c6 was taken in return, and these bishops are quite strong. I freely admit that. And what's interesting about this is the pawn structure is not symmetrical. Black has a c pawn to white's d pawn. So, and the concept of pawn islands. What's a pawn island? They're pawns on adjacent files. I like white's pawn structure because you only have 2 pawn islands from d3 to over to h2, and then this pawn a3, that's 2. Black has 1, 2, the a7 pawn, the c5 pawn, and then the third from e5 over to h7. So it means that white's pawns are a little easier to protect. How about knight d5 instead of queen takes c8, by the way?
Well,
Knight to d5 tactically looked like it was a somewhat promising move, but instead we saw the queen trade. Okay, the totally fine decision there. I just was getting excited by the tactical possibilities.
huh, interesting. I see a queen trade and like I just don't want to toy with that sometimes. So I just go for it.
That's actually a pretty reasonable approach. And sometimes just make the queen trade. Oh my gosh, this d5 square Chi-Yu. There's not a square I could like more on the chessboard than this knight. This knight coming.
I am very surprised to see bishop takes c4. Very, very surprised.
Yeah, I am as well, and I mean, that's a light square. So this one of these positions. We've mentioned the difference in dynamics between bishops and knights. Knights can go from color complex to color complex, and that knight is going to just jump into d5 and take control over this very important light square, and the bishop is helpless against it.
Can I just like take this? Can I just like use this moment to just say that we've seen our fifth, sixth knight and bishop ending with rooks. And well, I mean now it's actually a knight and bishop ending, which will probably steer towards a draw. But it's just the theme has been completely obvious in this match. It's like they signed an agreement beforehand to say we are going into a rook with minor piece endgames every single time we play.
I told you didn't get the memo, but the players did, and I did as well. That's why I know about it. And
yeah.
This endgame is not going to be so fun for black to play. Look where the pawns are for white. Light square, which means that you can't attack them. And even though black probably should hold this endgame, down half a minute on the clock.
Ooh, e5, king d4.
Oh, wait. Why did she allow this? Okay, she can play oh, wait. No, she can't play e3.
Yeah, she played f3 instead of e3. E3 was a lot more natural there just to stop this. But this makes Blum White's life a little bit difficult.
Yeah. Wait a second.
I mean, I don't think she's lost because of knight c3, but it's a move that she's going to have to find on the board, which is won't be easy.
Yeah, knight c3 because of king d4 is knight b5 check. It's like she found it. She found it. That's an
Okay,
important move. Oh my gosh, that was a scary moment because you go from being clearly better with minimal risk to all of a sudden being worse, and you have to find this move knight c3, and the knight on b5 won't be happy there. It's not like it's
definitely.
doing a lot, but it's necessary to keep the king out.
A knight b5. Okay, so now the king will never be able to go to d4. The knight will not be attacked. And this is once again looking like a draw. It was a little bit of a scary moment there just because, but just white needs to put her pawns on the light squares that black will never be able to attack them. And this is looking good.
Yeah, you just move the king back and forth because very importantly, the black king has nowhere to infiltrate from, so you can just keep your king here. It's not like white's king can go anywhere. I do like that now the king's on d3, white can actually play for more. As mentioned, all the pawns are in light squares, so there could be a zugzwang at some point. You just have to, I don't know how, when or where that's going to happen, but there are possibilities for it to happen.
Definitely.
And do you take what the, I'm just trying to think if I could play for a win by taking the f pawn just to remove the symmetry of the pawn. Oh, knight b3, knight b3. Oh, knight b3, hit both pawns. Knight b3 was winning a pawn there. Now the bishop comes to b6. And, oh, you need to get it. Okay, king d2. You do a little triangle.
Oh, you can do the little triangulation thing. I think she realizes this too.
And if you go king e5, there's king d3, so she moves her king back to f6.
Oh my god, this is gonna look so cute. This is just like so geometrical.
Oh, I made a draw. I'm going to bring up that game as we get to the next one just very quickly because Sarah moved her knight to b3 just a moment too late. And she played knight d2. Before, she went knight f1. If she went knight b3 right away, she would have won one of these pawns. The bishop can't protect both. She steals a pawn. She goes on to win this game. But she went knight f1 instead, and then finally brought the knight back, and the bishop was on b6. She couldn't win from there. So let's go to the live game. That was a clear missed opportunity for Sarah, and she remains down a point. And we have an Italian game. So how are you feeling about this opening? I know it's not the Spanish.
It's close enough to the Spanish that I've recently actually started teaching people the Italian instead of the Spanish because I'm like, Spanish is a lot of lines to memorize, but the Italian's actually easier to play. So I'm warming up a little bit more to what I tend to count the discount what I tend to call the discount Spanish. But I do think it's a very good opening for white, and it's a very flexible opening as well.
How dare you betray the Lopez? How
I know,
dare
right?
you, Chiyu? I'm so I don't think I can commentate with you anymore. I mean, it's all you now. I'm just gonna sit here.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Everyone knows the Spanish is my favorite opening, and here I am advocating for the Italian.
Honestly, though, I think your point from a coaching perspective is a very good one because the Italian, your pieces go on natural squares, and typically there are less forcing options. And I know for less experienced players, they're always like, "Wait, what if my opponent does this?" And like, "Am I going to be losing?" Those are the kind of questions they're asked. And even if there's no risk of being lost, it's just these psychological components that make chess such a difficult game. Where an engine, you put an engine on, it's like, yeah, king safety, what's that? I'm perfectly good here. But then a human player is like, wait a second, that looks like a weakness. I don't want to deal with that. So I got you. I totally get what you're saying. And I'm somebody who plays a different opening pretty much every single game I play. So I'm not particularly attached to any single opening except being against the French defense. That's really like my one thing there.
Definitely. Definitely. We know you're very passionate against the French. I'm very passionate for the Spanish. So we all have our own preferences.
Yeah, when she says against the French, it's just the opening. So if you're from France and you're watching this, you are just as welcome in this show as anybody else. So just to clarify there.
Yes, just to make it very, very clear.
And let's see what's going. Rook to b8. That's a move that looks strange, but you kind of get the feeling that black may be trying to play b5 at some moment soon. Even though that's not a move you want to play. So
Black's position is so passive. Oh!
Sorry, what were you saying about passive? She says, wait, you think that's passive? I'll show you.
We just need to get the knights back onto the back rank, and then we've got the whole squad chilling.
Oh my gosh! Like
How? Wait, sorry. What was the point of bishop d8?
to free up the e7 square, because when d5 happens, your knight would have had no retreating square, and now knight came to e7.
But why not bishop to f6?
Am I supposed to have an answer to that question? Because I don't.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
So
I
you're
mean,
saying
maybe I missed something.
you're saying
That's
the
what
bishop
I'm saying.
could be on f6 right now instead of d8.
Yes, which I would argue is
It's
a little bit more productive. Oh, she wants to go to c7.
it's funny because black's position, despite like being worse and you have less space, it's not that bad, right? There's no immediate checkmate.
Whoa, congrats.
Right? It's a high standard. I'm just setting the bar as low as possible so that, I mean, honestly, sometimes you have to do that. You have to take some solace in like the little victories, and you know the opening didn't go your way. So you take that. It's move 19 after rook a to d1. White's position is perfect. All the pieces on great squares. But now what? That's the essential question. Like, how do you actually go from a good-looking position, something that's aesthetically pleasing, into something more concrete? And maybe it's knight f5, maybe it's not. You know, I'm just trying to say that black's not just totally lost at this point. So you should be able to take a breath and then try to continue your play from there.
Yeah, well, I think this is the I just try to say moment and point and put moint. So, I'm feeling like Hess today. But, I mean, this is just a nice position. But like Hess has said, how do you make this position into a winning one from just an aesthetically good one? And, we do know that space advantages are nice. Okay, the queen just goes back to e5. I don't think that accomplished much. But it is going to be interesting to see how white improves. What do you suggest for white here? Because I don't think that bishop d4 will happen again.
No, I don't think we'll see repetition. I was going to say that because white has been better all game, and like f4 is extremely tempting, but it's one of those moves where it's like, wait, have I gone too far? Because it's a point of no return. As soon as you play f4, you're like, I'm going for it, and maybe it'll backfire because I'm overextending. Queen c2 play to protect the c3. Oh, f4, trap the queen. Chiu?
Oh my god. Oh,
Chiu?
I guess we have our answer for how does white win the game. That answered our question.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to that board really quickly because f4 came at the exact right moment. Bishop e6 took away the queen's retreating squares and moved like, I don't know, something like knight h5 or something was probably a good move for black, all things considered. Just stopping f4, trying to trade pieces, you've left space. Bishop e6 walked into f4, and that queen has no squares on the 5th rank and obviously can't go backwards, so that's a lost queen. Let's go on to the new game here. Chiu, I was scratching my chin. I was like, that one doesn't look right. And
yeah. But it's just like you don't expect your queen to get trapped very often. It's not something you see. And it's something more of like a really nice geometric puzzle. But then it actually happens in a game, and then you realize there's actually a real danger of you losing your queen, and then it's like, oh no.
Yeah, that's sad, honestly. And this match, so we entered this where Sarah was up 2-1 after the 5+1. In the 3+1, it's been all Kostenyak, although I will say that Sarah did blunder at bishop for free in that good position. So if she had been able to actually convert that advantage, and she had a pretty sizable advantage before walking into that knight fork of her rooks and then blundering a piece, she would be even in this match. So I think on paper, the result is +2 for Kostenyak. By how the games have been played, I would say that this actually has been relatively level. And so I think that, if I'm Sarah, I'm upset about the current score, but I'm like, I'm playing pretty well. And with bullets still to come, and maybe this is the last game of the 3+1, I want to get a win with the white piece in this game. And she's played her pawn to f4, and now to f5. So Chiu, I think we know that her mind is on a victory here.
Definitely, she has to force the win. She has to. Even if she draws in this game, she will still be down 2 points. And going to the bullet, Kostenyak is very, very strong as well. So it's not like she can force bullet wins or anything like that.
And what do you make of this position where white has more space, but this pawn f5, speaking of overextension, this pawn f5 in certain endgames will not be a pleasant one to hold. And endgame is very far away because I don't even see how to trade the pieces. So, Chiu, what do you make of this dynamic right now?
With everything going on, I think I like white's position more, even though objectively speaking, oh, never mind, I take that back. I like black's position more now. I like black's position more. Black's pawn structure is a lot safer than white's.
It's funny because I certainly was having that kind of moment, and that's why I said, "Hey, Chi, what do you think?" Because there's certain elements I like for white, but I think there are more elements I like for black because white's position looks fragile. Look at this pawn on g3. h3 was played so you could play g4, and then you stop and realize, wait, I don't really want to play g4 because that leaves my knight undefended. So when this knight moves off of f6, I will lose my knight on h4. So g4, just knight takes g4, for instance, and down goes your knight on h4. So h3 stopped knight g4 as well. She took on c5 and queen takes, trying to keep up the pressure on this e3 pawn. d4 now becomes a threat for black in the right time, which may be next move. And maybe knight f3, this bishop takes f5. That pawn on f5, Chiyu, put it back on f2 and let me play that position, please.
Yeah, I mean that's a part of about pushing pawns is like it looks good. It looks like you're going to attack. And then when you have it pushed up and there's no attack and then you're like, "Oh man, I really wish my pawn was on f2 right now."
And I guess knight f3 can be played because the rook's in f4 protecting the pawn on f5, but this position is still looking b4. I kind of like that move. At the very least, it's aggressive, and if you take on b4 with the knight, there's knight a4, winning this knight on b4 thanks to the rook's protection on. I think this is going to be a fun game, but Sara is down a full minute, or now it's at 50 seconds, but it started at being a full minute.
Yeah, well, knight takes d5. Knight takes d5 is always scary. Like I when people capture like this, I'm just like, oh my god, it looks like I'm gonna lose my bishop, right? But then you got to be objective about it and realize that a pawn is a pawn.
That is good math and good statements, just true, good logic. A pawn is a pawn. You heard it here first, everybody. Chiyu giving you the instruction you need. A pawn is a pawn. But on a more serious conversation, like. Taking a pawn like that, I think we both like, whoa, I don't want to take that pawn because I'm walking into a pin. But then when you get over that initial fear, you're 100% correct, Chiyu, that pawn was able to be taken. And now watch out for knight forks and things like that. But Chiyu, with 40 seconds on white's clock, do you think Sara can make use of that pawn? Or is it a risky decision because the board is opening up and white's king is in worse shape than black's?
I think black is honestly, oh, well, maybe not after rook d6. I was about to say black is better, but now this gives white a lot of play because you get the rooks onto the d file and you actually are able to defend. Oh, wait. Oh, okay. So you can't take the bishop on b7 because of rook takes d4. It's currently pinned. And we just see white securing her position a little bit.
It's funny, this knight on h4 has looked really bad to me for a long time, but it's so important because you keep the f5 pawn. Without the knight on h4, if you played knight to f3 back, black would have taken on d5 and then won the f5 pawn. So she's moving her rook back. All right, everything's protected for now. Oh my gosh, look at the artillery on the d file.
Woo, we're just missing white's queen on that file too.
Knight f3. Play knight f3. Oh!
Oh!
Whoa, what a move there! But wait, can I just take it? F takes G, bishop d5. I don't know which. I think rook takes d5 was maybe a little better because now there's rook takes g6.
Okay, well, I think white's fine.
Oh my gosh, that was knight g6. That move came as a stunner there. And well, I like the pass pawn for white, so I think white's position is a little bit better. I think I'd prefer that, but the clock situation is certainly in black's favor. Rook g4 not possible. The rook on d4 doing so well. Rook takes queen h5. Don't do that. Queen takes g3. Okay, so what's happening now? The rook wanted to go to e5, can't. Pawn f7 hanging. 15 seconds left for Sara.
Yep, this is once again going to be a really intense game, and Sara has unfortunately blundered tactics in the last few games, but if she needs to make a comeback, if she wants to make a comeback, she needs to play this endgame extremely accurately. And with this time scramble, it's something she can definitely be able to do.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's hard to play this position as black, weirdly enough. And rook f5 now. Oh, I think rook f5. Oh, b4 pawn was hanging, but rook f5 would attack h5. Here, I always want to push d6. I know my rook's under attack right now, but I want to make d6 happen. King h7, that's queen d3 check. That has to be thought out. So king f7. That king does not look like it's very safe there. Oh gosh. Okay, here comes this rook. Need to come to g6. It was out of play. Rook takes g3. Oh, she missed it. Rook takes g3 would have distracted the queen. and the rook in d4 was hanging.
Tactics is hard when you only have 9 seconds.
And now it's clearly better for white thanks to this pawn being on d6. Here comes queen to c6 in the near future. Okay, rook e2 to e7 is tempting. Queen c2 is just defensive. I think it's good to be defensive when you don't have too much time. Look at this queen on c6.
Oh, this is just such a painful position to play as black. Well, except maybe I would have traded queens there. I'm not sure why she didn't, because the pawn is not actually going to go anywhere. You just march your king over to take it.
But oh yeah, because you really just get the king right there so quickly.
Oh!
Oh my gosh! You know how I was talking about pre-moves? This game is not going to count. That was the last game of the 3+1. Chiyu, you know how I talk about sneaky pre-moves? That was not one of them.
Oh no, I think that's actually one of the first outright pre-move blunders we've seen. Like, we've seen misplayed tactics, but this one's very clearly a pre-move blunder.
Oh, she was expecting rook takes d6, so she like pre-moved rook c7.
Yeah, that was very, very unfortunate. I mean, that was extremely unfortunate. There were almost no blunders that game, and a pre-move blunder is quite different from a blunder, right? Because she would have obviously seen it if she just not pre-moved it. And we haven't actually seen Sarah or Alexandra pre-move that often, I would say. They've really let their time like run almost to the end, and they just still haven't pre-moved. But in this case, this was something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah, she lost the thread in this 3+1 time show. I mean, that game where she just dropped the bishop on e5. She lost this game where, at least for the last dozen or so moves, she with this pawn on d6 back here and in this position with the queen and the rook, it just felt like she was the one pressing. She was doing such a good job. She was actually even on the clock after being down for most of the game. So that's a really unfortunate loss there for her. And she goes down 3 games heading to the bullet. Chiyu, there's still a chance for Sarah. We saw Irina Krush come back against Sarah in the opening round of this Grand Prix leg when she was down 3. So it's possible. It's going to be extraordinarily difficult against a player like Kostanek, though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's going to be really, really, it's going to be quite a rough time for Sarah coming back into the bullet. She does need 3 wins basically to be able to make it even. And with bullet, it's just all about, playing fast, playing moves that are objective and not worrying too much about the nitty-gritty details of the position. But it's really not looking too good for Sarah right now.
It is not, but she is going to take a little bit of rest, maybe look at some openings, some chess to get in shape for this bullet. We will take a quick break here so that when we return, we'll be fully refreshed for the bullet portion. That's 1 minute plus 1 second increment. We will be back shortly with more action from the FIDE Chess.com Women's Speed Chess Championship. And we are back, ready for the bullet portion of things here. The chess queen, Alexandra Kosenyuk, she is up 5.5, 2.5 over Sara Karamel-Sharia here. And Chiyu, be honest with me. Does Sara have a chance?
I want to say yes so bad, but the nature of the games of the last 3 games tell me otherwise.
So you're saying there's a chance?
A very, very, very slim one. Very slim one.
Well, Jim Carrey, eat your heart out. Chiyujo says there is a chance for Sara. And she needs to do this quickly because as we get underway here in the bullet, it is, she has a really tough task ahead of her. She needs to, win her games. And
yes.
Really no other choice besides that. She needs to win them quickly. That's part of the problem. Is not only are you focusing on the game at hand, you're looking at the match clock, being like, "Wait a second, there's 9.5 minutes left. Okay, am I going to win this game quickly enough, or do I have to do something crazy?"
Definitely, and it's just like every single game is a must-win situation, which just actually it doesn't actually really help you with that much pressure. And honestly, I think it just like slightly takes away from your ability to play the most objective chess. But Sarah is tough. She's a really, really strong player, and we can only hope for great things coming from her.
Indeed. And this is the final portion of this third place match. We will have the championship match between Katerina Lagno and Yifan. You can see the scores on screen there. 5.5, 2.5 in favor of Kosenyuk, and 0-0 in favor of nobody because the other match has yet to take place. And rook to e4, Chiyu. I mean, White's position is so nice here. The d4 pawn, it's the c4 pawn, the nice central pawns here. White can just eat up clock. Right? You just have a better position, no real risk. And bishop e6, trying to go after the c4 pawn. Can knight takes c4 be played? You have to do that. Knight c4, rook c4, b5.
Wow.
Oh, she went back.
It went in the direct opposite direction.
No. That's not the move you want.
You know what would have worked there? Actually, I think rook takes e6.
But the bishop on d2 was hanging, so... She gets b5 anyway. Your rook takes e6 is just a great thematic sacrifice no matter what. And I wouldn't even take on c4. I'm going to win the c6 pawn. That's what Kosenyuk chooses. She says, give me that c6 pawn. Whoa. Wait. What's happening here? P-sack? Oh. I'm confused. I'm going to be honest with you.
Wait. It looks good. And with so little time on the clock. Oh!
Yeah, she gave back the exchange this way. And... Rook takes c4.
Did she mean to give back the exchange, or was it a blunder?
No, I think she was going to lose it regardless, so she chose that manner.
Right, okay.
Oh my gosh. Black's king is safe. So actually having the 2 pieces for the rook...
Is it safe?
In my opinion, it's as safe as it kind of gets. No, it's definitely not safe. Knight f5? Fork? Oh, queen f6 or queen e5? Like these things... Whoa! Knight takes e7. You have to take with... Queen g5, rook h8.
And rook h8. Oh. Instead of commentating, we're more like react endies over here. Just like on every single move, we're like...
We have to be, right? These moves are happening so quickly that a lot of unexpected stuff will happen. For us, for the players, it's just very difficult playing a match like this with very little time on the clock. And now with 6.5 minutes in this bullet portion, it seems like this one is Kosenyuk's match. I don't think there's even enough time for Sara to come back. We'll see if she can get a couple quick victories. That's what she needs. But it seems like Kosenyuk, after the 5-minute portion, Kosenyuk really upped her game and will be deserving of her third-place finish here.
I do think that I think Kosenyuk is just playing so strong. And it's also not helping that Sarah's blundering.
Right.
Which, at this point, at this stage, you just have to understand what's going through Sarah's mind right now. Like game aside, it's just like it's been absolutely devastating for her. She's played well, but the single blunders in each of her games have really thrown the game. And it's all about accuracy until the end, and not accuracy until a certain point.
Yeah. And I honestly have to give Kosteniuk some huge credit because, particularly in that final game of the 3+1, where Sarah was pressing, she had that passed pawn on d6, putting up tenacious defense, very stubborn defense, makes your opponent's life as difficult as possible. And many players would have collapsed in that position. Like, you're facing a passed pawn and a queen and rook endgame. It looks bad. You make one inaccuracy, and it's not. It turns out it's a blunder. You lose the game in a couple moves. But Kosteniuk has been quite sharp, quite alert defensively. And we said this early on, Chiyu. At the beginning, it was the side with the advantage that was just winning every position, no matter quite how slight or how large the advantage was. Kosteniuk started putting up some real good defense in this 3-minute portion, and now in the bullet, it's already been such a big score for her that she's able to play freely.
Definitely. I mean, I think at this point, just play the best game you can and get the practice out of this. You know, Alexandra is a former world champion, so it's also, you know, a great honor to beat her in games as well. So at this point, it's just like you play for good chess. And Black is just, you know, going for these kind of attacks, which you don't even know if are sound, but they work because it's a bullet game.
Yeah. Queen takes f2. Oh, was possible, but okay. It's hard to make a move like queen takes f2 when the rook was pinned on f7. It was a good move, but it's really hard to see that rook c1 just trading off the pieces. This feels like we're heading towards a split point. So queen up.
Definitely.
That's a big decision. Doesn't take because otherwise the black would have promoted the pawn. And here, white's queen is perfectly placed on e3, protecting a3, protecting f2. And this is one of those games where even if the match were close, Chiyu, like you would play this out for the next couple minutes. Oh, wait, huh?
Wait, that was a free pawn.
Yeah, that wasn't.
But I mean, it's still a draw, objectively speaking, but it's just not easy anymore.
Yeah, and in bullet, objectively means almost nothing, as we've seen time and time again.
Oh, this is gonna be rough.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that
Queen
one.
d3, the king has to go back to the g file, because after king e1, there's a queen d2 check, and you promote, so take on f2 also looks plenty good.
Yeah, I think the thing about the other line was white had perpetual check with like queen e4 and stuff, so in this line, white doesn't. But of course, it's not like black desperately needs to win this game.
No. She certainly does not. And I'm actually just trying to evaluate this position. You know, you said objectively now. I'm trying to be objective again. I feel like the chances to draw are much higher than the chances to win, but because there are going to be some cross checks and you can always block the queen check with your queen, so to offer the queen trade, white can't afford to trade queens, which is why white's life is a little more difficult.
Definitely. And it's just like, Kosteniuk doesn't even need to win this. Okay, this is going to be even more difficult now for white. Wow. The level of play from Alexandra is very accurate. She's just not letting herself get a queen f2 and then
queen f3. You protect h5 and threaten queen h1 checkmate.
She's okay with the draw though. She's up so many points that she's okay with the draw. But you know, this is a chance where it's like if your opponent starts doing stuff like this, I mean, I know there's 4 games that need to be played, but which is not gonna happen in 2 minutes. Quite frankly, you can't. It's very hard to fit in 4 games. But you know, Sarah got another draw, and any bit really does help.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about it. There is one more Grand Prix leg for both Kosteniuk and for Sarah. You play 3 of the 4 legs, and there's only their second each, if I'm not mistaken. So they will have one more opportunity to try to win this thing. And yeah, just, you know, I definitely feel for Sarah here. She started out on such a high note, winning 2 of the first 3 games, playing excellent chess in those, and something went wrong along the way. And Kosteniuk, as I gave her credit before, I'll do so again, really a marvelous performance by her.
Definitely. You know, we've got just, and we have to remember that, like Chess Weave has just pointed out, Kosteniuk has played so many Blitz and Rapid World Championships, so it definitely does help her chances. And of course, this is going to, what?
Where did the pieces go?
What?
I also have that same reaction as you. I'm like, I don't think this is what was supposed to happen here.
Okay, well, Sarah might objectively win this position. She's up in whole exchange.
Yes, and she may win the position, but unfortunately the win is a little too late. And
Mm-hmm.
just keeping an eye on some things. We will have the next match starting immediately after this one concludes, and considering that there are just 20 seconds left in the official match timer, unless somehow the game ends before then, this will be the final game, and we'll go straight into the 5+1 time control of Yifan versus Katerina Lagno.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Kosnick will just drag this game on for as long as she can. Doesn't have to play another game. She is up a lot. Oh, whoa.
Oh, do we? I don't
Do
know
we
if
get this game?
it was very close. It was like right on. Nope, we do not get the game.
Okay.
We do not get the game, which means that we are going into the next match shortly. And wow, what a match that was!
It's definitely been a very, very intense day. Lots of tactics, really. Lots of tactics. Lots of really nice end games as well. So, a lot of
Yeah.
stuff have happened.
I have to, just once more say to Alexandra Castagna, congratulations on what was an excellent performance. And yeah, we will have the next matchup, and by the next matchup, the big matchup between the first and second seeds, Yifan and Katerina Lagno, starting very shortly. So I'm just going to try to seek word. And let me just verify what's happening here. But congratulations are definitely in order for Kosteniuk and Chiyu. You ready for this next match?
I am so ready for it. It's going to be exciting. We had a really intense match between Alexandra and Sarah, which unfortunately, was did not go in Sarah's favor. But Hoifan Katarina will definitely be a highlight for today. It is the final for leg 3, and Hoifan, as we all know, is the strongest female player currently, highest rated, just all around really, really good player. But Katarina does have more experience with playing online blitz events and online blitz in general. So it's going to be a really intense match.
It will for sure. And Katerina, we had her on for an interview the other day. She was excited at the opportunity to play against Yifan, and she also was saying, welcome back. I can't wait to have more battles with you. She said it takes a lot out of her. They're taxing events, but it's a lot of fun to play the best players. And so Lagno is excited for this opportunity. And come on, let's look at her. She's actually the 1 seed because her blitz rating, her FIDE blitz rating, is higher than Yifan. So I wouldn't even really consider her the underdog. These players are pretty level when it comes to this time control. Yifan doesn't have as much experience as some of these other players in the online format. In the first leg that she played in, she didn't make it too far. Now we'll see how she's able to handle the final playing against Katerina Lagno.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be exciting. So we're going to be ready for it.
We will indeed. And just making sure that everything is set in stone. And yeah, it looks like we're good. Okay.
All right.
We are going to have liftoff shortly. And still waiting for it. It seems like the players are set. And, well, speaking of liftoff, we have it. So let us go.
Okay, we go right in. We go right in.
No rest for the weary. And the players start E4. And as soon as we see the first move, Yifan's connection is... Oh, do you see that? She's disconnected.
Oh my god, this is not a good start.
Wait, I have a question, though. If you disconnect before you've made a first move, typically at Chess.com, you don't lose the game, right?
Yeah, so I think there's a minute delay, but I feel like for these kind of events, I don't know what's going on. Oh, she's come back with a 30-second time deficit in the first game. That is rough.
That's not a good start, but we'll see if she's able to come back from it. The good news is it is the 5-minute time control, so she has plenty of time, even though she's spent 30 seconds for no reason. She knows these openings. I think that she'll be okay. And, well, for Lagno, we have a solid start. We're going to see a Maraxi bind type of structure. And you...
Maraxi bind kind of structure?
Oh, sorry. What was that? What did I say?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe this is the guy who said I don't listen to Hess. I do listen to Hess.
I regret my words. I'm going to stop talking now. It's all you. It's all you. It's all Chiyu.
Yeah, okay. No, I mean, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm done. I'm done. I quit.
I thought we might say C4 as well, but this kind of structure is also pretty.
I have just officially quit, and so Chiyu, it's all you.
I'm sorry, Robert. I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that.
No, it's okay. I'm used to it by now.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is going to be whatever this Sicilian is. Honestly, I don't even know the name of it, but it is going to be not a particularly aggressive line, so something a little bit more positional, something with a lot more gameplay. And Yifan is already down a whole minute, and 30 seconds of it was on the fact that she disconnected for a bit in the opening, but the other 30 seconds her quite literally thinking on this move after bishop g5.
Yeah, bishop g5. This is actually a very commonly played move, and the point is that you are putting pressure on f6 and saying, please take me on d5, because when you take me on d5, I take with the e-pawn, and then this e7 pawn is sort of a target for the long term. The open e-file, of course, is good for the rooks. You gain more space. Yifan says, well, you're trying to take me on f6. I couldn't really do anything else. Let me capture you. Trade the knights off now. I do think that white has a slight pull. Ooh, that was a big decision to take with the pawn on e5.
Wow.
What do you make of that one?
Let me just tell you, I've actually never seen this pawn structure before. First off, just straight up, I'm completely unfamiliar with it. I don't think I've seen double pawns on the e file very often, especially coming from the d file over. So try to analyze this position. I think black's pawn structure could be good, but it's of course also a potential weakness. I feel like you always want to push f4 and f3. Okay, well, white responded with f3, so you're not going to get that anymore. So now maybe I just think that white pawn structure is better.
White's pawn structure is definitely better. Black at some point may try to go e6, but here e6 would allow d6, so you have to be very careful. I know you want to trade off the pawns. White can play c5. Why not? c5, rook f1 to d1, rook a1 to c1. This looks like a great start for Lagno.
Yeah, this is not looking too good for Yifan.
And we got to give a shout out to the chat. I see Chess Weeb in there. I'm sure that's Danish Boros. And he also shares that account, I believe, with some friends who are grandmasters. And we see Anna Muzichuk, a participant in this tournament, a popular streamer on Twitch, and a grandmaster herself. So good to see some strong players joining us in the chat today, and everybody who's tuning in. I'm very happy that you're all here. No matter your level, we're appreciative of your support and continued viewership.
Also, shout out to Anna for letting us all know about the how the time works in this. So we do know now that if you disconnect, Chess.com waits for you. But if you run out of time, then you have 10 minutes. So thank you very much for the insight. We're completely clueless here.
Whoa, speak for yourself. I'm not totally clueless. I'm just mostly clueless.
Oh, okay. It's something, right? That's something at least. You're doing better than I am.
No, definitely not. I'm actually working to bring the players on, and I just made that work. So here we have Katerina Lagno on camera here for you. We have the players in a call. There are fair play regulations that require them to be in the call and share their screens, and they're doing just that. So here we see Katerina Lagno with the white piece. Wait, where'd her advantage go? I turn away to fix something, and I come back and I'm looking at the thing. Where did the double pawns go? So black went e4. I think white overlooked that after e4, the pawn and b2 is hanging. So you give up your double pawn for this undouble pawn and bring your bishop back.
Well, I mean, we do see, white still probably has a very, very, very slight advantage just because of the center, which, black just doesn't have a pawn in right now. And after queen takes e4, black will have to find a way to deal with the bishop. Okay, queen takes d4. I'm actually liking this position more for white because you've got the e file. You can put pressure on e7, and I think white's king's a little bit safer. White's king is certainly safer. Rook f6 played. Again, you want to play e6 for black at some point, but you know that if you play e6, white's going to try to play d6. And okay, the rook on f6 was hanging, but the point still holds. That e6 is the move you want to play. Now you definitely can't get it to work because the rooks are barreling down. So Chiyu, I sort of like Yifan's defensive setup. She's threatening against the white king if white tries to put all her rooks forward. Not going to happen. I think trading off a pair of rooks is good for white, so I'd play rook e6 in the near future. Definitely. Yeah, playing rook e6 or trading off the pair just literally says no to any kind of rook f1 threat in the future, which is always scary because you might get checkmated if that happens, right? So stopping off one of the rooks will give you a lot more gameplay.
Yeah, and you're also cramping black's position by putting your rook on e6, and black may consider queen d6, a queen into g3, queen into a3. This queen wants to improve her position. a4.
Wow.
Giving up the a pawn to get the e pawn. You don't want to take on a4, that's for sure.
Definitely, definitely. I just feel like black doesn't have a lot of moves she can play in this. Ooh,
Queen takes f4. Yeah, queen takes f4 and then take on e7. We both were like, oh, I see something here, because the rook will get distracted from the e7 pawn. You sacrifice your queen for a rook to win the enemy queen back for a rook, and you steal a pawn in the process. So that was well spotted by Katarina. She takes on e7. Now she has an extra pawn in the d file. Rook c7. Keep that pawn on c4 protected, and then try to play d6, d7, and bring your king in. So I think rook c7 is like the prudent move here. You don't need to rush this position. Rook takes a7, I don't think is right.
Yeah, I think rook c7 is the correct way to go. It's definitely, I want to say it's winning for white, but of course it's not as simple as just saying it's winning, because there's still a lot of intricacies. Black can bring her king over to potentially defend through g5, but otherwise, this endgame is looking pretty good for white.
Yeah, it's a really important decision. So Katarina Lagno, very experienced player, she's taking her time. She's like, why would I rush this moment? I'm going to sit here and figure it out. I have plenty of time. I'm actually ahead on the clock. So she takes on a7. She thinks that this is the right path forward. Is she just going to go d6, d7? Is like her plan to sit that pawn in the 7th rank, because the problem for black is you would have to bring your king all the way back to e7, bring your rook to d4, and you still can't really afford to take on d7, because oftentimes the king and pawn in games are losing for you, as the white king will enter quite quickly. So d7 is about to happen.
And then we're going to see king g5.
King g5, and then maybe rook to b7 actually. So maybe she's giving up her d pawn for the b pawn and using her a pawn. I don't know about this. I'm going to be honest with you, Chiyo. I like rook c7 just sitting on the position a little bit. This feels like it clarifies black's plan in a way that gives her more chances, even if eventually it still should be a win for white.
I mean, definitely. I just think that this position is, I don't even know if it's like, do you think it's winning for white still?
It's just, it's
like it's better, but
it's teetering. It's right in that. Actually, after rook b7, black can't really bring her king closer, because, for instance, if you go king f6, rook b7, king e7, then I take on b6 and win your g6 pawn. So white can sort of sit on the position and improve her king here. So rook b7 for sure.
Ooh, and then we might play.
And you can't play
king
rook
e7?
d6. It's funny, you can't play rook d6 because rook takes b6, so everyone knows. So king e3 first, okay. And, a5! Play a5, because if b takes a5, there's rook a6. Oh my gosh, play a5 here. That is a sick move.
Oh my god, there's just, this is way too dank.
Oh my gosh, I think a5, she found it. Oh my gosh, you can't take, because rook a6 pins the rook. It can't take, you get a queen. That is tactics in the endgame for you.
Wow. And that is why, just because it's an endgame doesn't mean it's boring or anything like that. You've just got every single shot at, winning the game through tactics.
As Hamilton sings, I'm going to take my shot, And a5 played here. Oh my gosh. a6, push that thing. You have 2 passed pawns.
Okay, this is just a very, very slow death.
So black has no threat. Rook takes d7, loses immediately because I can push my pawn up. So I'm wondering if I can just bring my king up to e5 first, or if I should play rook a8. She plays king f4, she bring the king to e5. And when you bring the king to e5, you threaten d8 equals queen.
I see Hikaru in the chat. Good morning, Hikaru. Hello. Oh, wait, this is looking slightly less winning now.
Wait, why did the king go to this way?
Wait, but if the king stayed on e3, it could never cross the d file.
But I was bringing the king to e5.
Oh, right, because then you hit the rook. Okay, so this is a draw.
Well, no, this is not easy at all. She's cut the king off, so she'll play g3 now. And if the rook goes back to a6, you're in this passive position. h4 for white? No. This ain't easy. So how do you make this work? I'm trying to king h6, rook e5, rook g5. That's it.
All right. Well, obviously, I just cannot play endgames because.
Here it comes.
Ooh, here he comes.
And no, g5 check won't work. I'm like trying to go g5, king g5, rook a3, something like that. No, here rook g5.
Wow.
That's all you need. You win g6, you win h5, and Katerina Lagno is taking this first game.
And this, the two pawns endgame is quite well known in Russian names that it's a draw. I think Hoyfa missed a chance there, honestly, when the king went up to the king side. I feel like there was something that was missed.
Probably. And I can't blame her because it was a freakishly complex endgame there, so hard to blame her too much for anything that she may have missed. I mean, we were just I don't even know the right word. We're excited by that one. And Chiyu, if we were still shaking off our slumber when we started this at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time, we are now wide awake for this championship match in a 1-0 lead for Katerina Lagno.
Slowly waking up, even though it is 9 in the morning. I have not had my morning coffee, so I'm here just running on adrenaline. So lots of adrenaline pumping, honestly, at this point.
I don't drink coffee, so that wouldn't be a thing for me regardless.
Wait, really?
I don't drink coffee now. You know what? You know what is my quote-unquote caffeine, what wakes me up? My stimulant is chess. I just see chess, I'm ready to commentate on it. So, no coffee for this guy.
Okay. All right. So, Hess just drinks chess, confirmed. I mean, honestly, I don't even know if caffeine, wakes me up at all. I just drink it because I like the taste of it. So I just, it's like placebo for me, I guess. I hope it works. I don't know if it actually works. I just drink a lot of water, honestly.
How's that caffeine addiction working out for you?
I don't have one. I honestly don't have one.
Oh, that's what all caffeine addicts say.
I'm drinking water. It's just so hot here. It's making me drowsy, and I haven't had a full night's sleep. But here we are.
All I'm hearing is excuse after excuse, if I'm being honest with you.
My bad. My bad. Well, I mean, we did get the Spanish again, the Ray Lopez. I am happy, except it's that Morphe defense line, which is not my favorite line. And funnily enough, I've actually gotten this position by playing, it's that line from the King's Indian, actually, where you play d4 and your opponent goes g6, and then you go e4, d6, and then you play 92 and stuff.
Yeah, I feel that. Chiyu, you look at this position, knights on h5. You said King's Indian, and when I hear King's Indian, I think of a potential attack. Is Lagno going to get any even semblance of an attack here, or is White just going to be better with the better center? And sort of we have a Spanish, so you're the person I'm deferring to here.
Wow. Okay. Yes, you'll definitely be seeing f5. The idea behind knight h5 is usually to push f5, but sometimes you play king h8 just to be a little bit more safe. And you always think that maybe White has tricks on this diagonal going from a2 to g8, but as I've discovered, you actually don't. So, I mean, king h8, and then you push f5.
And is f5 such a difficult move to play because it's thematic? It just has such severe consequences. Where, for instance, I'll take on f5, and you want to take with your g pawn often, but then your knight on h5 wasn't defended. So,
definitely. Well, I mean, here it might be still worth to play bishop e3, but it's a bit of an empty threat at this point. So maybe we'll just see something solid like queen e2. I'm always afraid of f5 and then you blunder f4 because your bishop is trapped. But a lot of the ideas go d takes e5, and then if d takes e5, you can get a pretty nice square on c5 for your bishop. So there's just a lot of ideas here for White. The attack exists, but it's not the end of it.
Yeah, there are plenty of options here for both sides, and that's sort of what happens when no pawns have been traded. And there's only tension on the d4, e5 dynamic, what these pawns can capture each other, and it's a good lesson because determining when to capture a pawn is difficult for a lot of people. Here, Black has no reason to take on d4. I know it's White's turn. I'm just saying more generally speaking. Taking on d4, White will take back with a pawn and then have 2 on 1 in the center. So that's why Black is refraining from doing so. And White similarly doesn't really want to take on e5 so badly. It frees up the c5 square for the bishop, as Chiyu rightly pointed out. but it also allows black to have that clarity. And, well, she does take on e5, and she's probably going to put her bishop on c5. And that's going to be better for white. I just feel like the clarity is something that black desired.
Definitely. So, after d takes e5, we might see knight b3. Just once again, the c5 pawn, c5 square. Sorry, I almost said pawn there when there's no pawn there. The c5. Oh. Okay, interesting. I just have not seen many people actually play a move like d takes e5, but of course the idea is still, there. It's just to get the pawn onto the e file, but it's one way to, if you have less space, you want to swap off pieces, so it might be a good idea, objectively speaking. It also makes the position a little simpler. You might want to put your bishop on c6 and then try to push f5. That doesn't actually look like it's going to happen anymore because of bishop b3. The rook's not going to look great on g8, and this bishop on c5 is actually going to look pretty strong.
Yeah, it's one of these positions actually where even if black were able to play f5, which she's not because it's pinned to the rook on g8, like it doesn't threaten anything. Because f5 had the threat of f4, as you pointed out before, and I like this move, knight f4. You can threaten knight to d3. There will be some potential attacks on h3 and g2 as well. The knight's doing some good work here on f4. And a big, very important point that is not immediately noticeable is that when there was a pawn on d6 and a pawn on d4, if this bishop goes to e3 and you take on f4, the pawn on f4 becomes hard to defend with the addition of the pawns. Without them, you have the e5 square that you can put your bishop or queen on to protect that pawn. So that, I know it's hard to visualize that, but I'm just trying to say that with the additional pawns on the board, if white is going to take on f4, it becomes more annoying for black to defend this pawn. Whereas without
what I would go for here? I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Go ahead.
I would push g5, g4.
Oh, I'm with you. Full steam ahead. This is the final here, the last game of the year. Don't hold anything back.
Definitely. Just go for it. Just go for it, right?
Yeah, g5. Try to go g4. I'm with you. There it goes.
Oh!
And I saw Yifan sit up. She was like, "Oh, wait, g5 happening. Didn't expect that one." And f3 would be one way of trying to combat this idea. She brings her knight back to f1. She's trying to go knight e3. The move g5. You would like to put your pawn back on g6 later in the game to shore up the f5 square. Oh, she's all in. And h4. The problem for black, though, Chiyu, I'm looking at the f5 square.
Where do you go next?
You pushed it. You pushed the g-pawn up. But now you kind of wanted to go back to g6.
Remember that f4, f-pawn that got pushed all the way to f5 and then, just wanted to go back to f2?
I'm the one who wants the pawns to return.
Yeah, I can't wait for patch 2.0 of chess where the pawns can move backwards and, a lot of exciting things will happen.
And so bishop e3. The question is white actually going to take on f4? I don't think you totally... Rook a to d1. The queen's hitting the h4 pawn, but rook a d1 keeps the queen tied down, at least for the moment. And the queen, if you take on h4, this bishop takes f7 to consider as well. So, How does that trade look to you? If you're black, are you willing to take h4 and give up f7?
No. I'm quite frankly, I'm just not. I value material way too much. Like, I'm just like one of those players who cannot give up material. Unless there was like a tactic, like a very specific tactic that I saw, which in that case would not be a sacrifice. It would just be a tactic.
This is good. This is good for me to know. It's good knowledge so that if anyone's like, hey, I'm playing Chiyu in a sub battle, or something like that, I'll be like, you know what to do? Try to just take her pawn. Just take it. What?
Wait, you're saying you would prepare people against me?
Well, I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying it now. They can come watch this clip at any point in time and hear it. So you gave the information. I'm just reinforcing.
Okay.
It's not my fault. This is your fault.
All right. I'm going to stop revealing things about myself.
Anyway, this knight's on h3 here. Feels pretty good. It's like the weirdest outpost you can possibly have on h3. But it doesn't... Like, the thing is, it's out of play. So if the queens get traded, for example... bishop takes h4 is super tempting. Mm-hmm. I know the king just moved away from the h-file, but bishop takes h4, I feel like if the queens get traded, the point is going to make black is in big trouble because your knight's out of play and can't get back in. Mm-hmm. So I would try to play with the initiative here and play a move like bishop takes h4. She says, hey, speak for your own pieces. These are mine. Don't sacrifice them.
Darn it, Hess. Okay, well, the thing is, now I don't think black has much of an attack. The knight on h3 is actually, I love the knight on h3. Can we just talk about the knight on h3 for a moment?
Sure, let's talk a little bit more about what square is that knight on again? Remind me. Is it on h3?
Yeah, it might be. It might be. It's like you know when you ask someone how do you think the knight got there? Take a wild guess.
And there's actually an emote for the h3. I don't know if you know this famous emote.
No, I actually don't.
Well, I'm gonna put it in the chat because I remember it. I was covering the event. There it is. It's the Nakamura, the Naka h3. When Fabiano played that in the World Championship against Magnus, the look on his face was priceless.
Wow. Wow.
So, what's going on here? So black is down a pawn, right? No, wait, up a piece. Wait, which? Huh? Bishop
black?
d4, bishop takes d4, rook e4, bishop e5, and then just the calm knight to e3.
Wait, there's no way this is working.
Rook takes g4 though, and the knight on h3 is trapped.
But the knight f4 now?
Yes, you should take with a rook on g4. The knight f4 interposes a piece there. Queen d7 is also a great move. King takes h3, there's h5. Oh my gosh. This is just craziness in a bullet scramble at this point. f3 played. Okay, that's good. Now king takes h3. Just take...
Oh!
Okay, this is scary.
Knight f4.
Knight f4, king f2, and then queen g7.
Queen h3.
Oh, queen h3 is nasty. You're just going all in, and if you take, there's rook g2 check. The queen is lost here.
Oh, queen h3, or queen g2, or anything, or queen h2, or there's literally just everything works here.
Although,
I don't know, man.
the black king isn't so safe, so I would have to be a little bit careful. Queen f6 check.
Queen f6.
Queen f6, and then king h7. There's queen f7 check, and you win the rook on e8.
Queen g6.
Queen takes h5. This game is going to continue. It's wild. Play rook e6. Don't take that rook. Play rook e6. If you take, you close down the...
Oh no, rook takes e4 is completely lost.
Yeah, then rook e8 check and king d3, knight f4 check. You fork the king and the queen. Oh, queen f2. Just keep the checks going. King b3. Okay, maybe there aren't as many checks as I thought.
Wait. Whoa, there's no way this is... Oh, time. Clock. Yep, clock.
Yep, clock indeed. That was crazy. That was absolutely wild. I was very confused. I was trying to figure things out on the fly. Pieces were flying everywhere. And first it looked like black was just going to win. And then it looked like white had some checks to maybe win that rook on e8. And then black was like, haha, I get the last laugh. And there's a victory for Katerina Lagno. She goes up 2-0. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't I predict Lagno to win this match?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I wasn't saying to.
All right, you just
really
really had to remind everybody of that. It's okay.
I really wasn't trying to be combative. I was just trying to remind myself. My memory sometimes is a little short term, and I was just like, but I did pick Sarah to win. She didn't win, so I just want to remind everybody that I am a flawed prognosticator.
Yes, I mean, Katarina is playing really well, and she's playing these games absolutely in like a really just intense fashion. And I think as the time control actually gets faster, it will actually work in Katarina's favor, just because she seems to be the more experienced Blitz player. And I just wanted to point out for everybody in the last game that in a time travel scramble, mistakes are going to happen. It's going to happen to anybody out there. As commentators, we have the luxury of not being caught up in the position and being able to see the position as just like every single one. But for them, they already have a plan and everything. So it's very, very different for them to play. For
sure. And speaking of a plan and everything, I'm looking at this position. I don't know what black's plan is to do about these double isolated B pawns. Like, isn't white just going to play knight a3, knight chops on b5 next?
Whoa, what did the double isolated B-pawns do to offend you?
Nothing, but trying to be the objective commentator that the people have grown accustomed to here. Black hasn't really developed. Mm-hmm. The pawns are double and isolated. This is what happens. It looks like a French defense. It's from the Sicilian, but it looks like a French defense where you play bishop d7, bishop b5 because you're so concerned about the horrendous prospects of your light square bishop that you say, I'm going to do everything in my power to trade it off. And then once you trade it off, you now have this problem on b5, and here comes knight a3, and here comes knight takes b5, and thank you for the pawn.
Yeah. This is not looking good at all for Yifan. Not at all.
No, it doesn't. I wish I had something a little more eloquent. I wish that I could talk about how there's something going right for black in this position, but really there's nothing. And that's actually happens in many openings where you try to trade some pieces and you think that, okay, I'm improving my position by getting rid of a problematic piece. But what happened here was it gave yourself some weak pawns that you couldn't defend. And so I would play for d4 at some point. I don't know if it works right now, but black needs to do something, because if you sit on the position, I feel like white's just going to continue improving, and Lagno has an excellent position to start with. So I'm looking for d4 ideas.
Yeah. Also, like, just in these kind of openings, I mean, it's out of these kind of openings, you kind of want to go for the e5 pawn. So I wonder if there's any pressure black can put on the e5 pawn. That's going to be like basically her only kind of play.
Agreed.
But here's a chance to play maybe bishop takes e3 and f6.
You're thinking like a French player. I think that maybe you should get off the Spanish grind and go for the French, because
that will never be me. That will never be me.
So you are on team me here.
Yes, I am. I think that the winner just completely counters the French, honestly.
This got bad real quick, though. Your idea of taking on e3 and playing for f6 looked good. Now this bishop's coming into d6, where it hits the queen and protects the e5 pawn. And it's not game over, because f6 actually still is on the docket. With the queen going to d7 right now, f6 or d8, same idea. f6 says you can't take me on f6 because your bishop needs some defense here. So you have to be careful. And all jokes aside, we were talking about how good the position was for white. It is still great for Katerina Lagno, but it's not game over. You look at this position, white is up a pawn, but that pawn's on the side of the board. You're not getting a queen, you're not promoting, you're not getting even a passed pawn just yet. So there are still going to be tactical ideas for black to try to execute here, and f6 is one of those, just to try to collapse white's center and give Yifan some much-needed play.
Yeah, I mean, basically here, a5. Okay, rook fd1.
Okay, so she was knight e7, trying to get that knight to f5. Oh, the c3 pawn also is a backward pawn. This rook can come to c4 and try to double up the rooks. Really not so easy of a position.
Definitely. I mean, it's just like... Oh, the bishop comes back. Okay, so, I mean, knight f5 was going to be a threat there, I guess, but... This is not that simple, because as white, you have to find a way to, like, create an advantage or create something. But you got an extra pawn. You can create the passed a pawn at some point. It's just not right now, because for reasons that just b takes a5 and you lose the pawn. So white does have to actually find some way to break through here, which is looking a little bit more difficult as every single move goes on. But of course, white does have the better chances.
And g3 was a great move, by the way. I say this a lot. The pawn 3 squares away from a knight often dominates that knight. That knight wanted to jump into f4 or h4, something like that. The pawn on g3 says, nope, not so fast. And we have the dynamic we've talked about several times in the Sara versus Alexandra match, and we are about to see the 5-minute portion come to conclusion. 3, 2, 1, no more 5+1 after this game. Knights on light squares, bishop on dark square. That bishop can't touch those knights, and that's going to be a long-term nuisance for white. The bishop on d4 acting like a savior. It's kind of protecting everything while putting pressure on b6. Great piece, sure. But look at black's pieces operating on the light squares. A rook on c4, knight on f5. I would reroute this knight from g6 maybe to e7, and then even over to c6 perhaps to take this bishop on d4. I just don't see how white breaks through to you. Do you think that this position is actually improving for Yifan over the last half dozen or so moves?
I definitely think so. I definitely think that there's like a potential fortress or something that Yifan can set up. And at this point, it's just really important to like put a hold on the, the bleeding out of the points, because if she loses any more games, it's going to be so difficult for her to come back in the 3+1 and the bullet included, just because I don't think that she has the advantage in those time controls.
In agreement. I don't think she does either, and this is a really good opportunity for her because you're upset at the beginning. You lose a pawn on move, what was that, move like 12, and then you're like, all right, this is as bad as it gets. And then you get to this position, you're like, wait a sec. There's probably some pressure on Lagno, despite the fact that she has a 2-game lead. She was up a pawn for the whole game pretty much, and now it's like, why am I not winning this game? Why am I not pressing forward? Am I even better anymore? And you need to be skeptical. You need to ask yourself questions like that. Am I still better? And I'm not really sure that white is, and white's maybe a little bit better, but now it's a dynamic game rather than just like a squeeze with an extra pawn.
Yeah, for sure. I don't actually know what white's idea will be in this position. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking about when we eat about the chess. What am I thinking? I think that you're kind of sitting on the position, but the issue is white can't really sit for so long. If you ever push g4, a committal move like that, then you're encouraging me to take on d4. So at some point, black is going to take on d4. I'm not even sure which knight you're going to take with. And I don't see a plan for white here. If you push b5, well, now your pawns are stuck on the queen side, and then you've made a4 a target, so you can't do that. And now c takes d4 is forced to protect e5, and queen e7. So your pawns are stuck. You have to go b5 to save the material, and then the knight comes into a5, and it's not going to be easy for white to press forward despite being a pawn to the good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be like Hess has given a very good analysis of this position already. So I'm just going to put my 2 cents in. Is that I don't know what I'm going to do as white in this position because every single move feels like I might potentially drop a pawn.
Yeah. So let's talk. And I'm going to ask you this question: what pieces would you like to see traded for either side? Like, what's white looking for? What's black looking for?
Wow. Okay. So morning commentary is really, really putting my brain to work. If I was white, I want that Rec Room C4 just gone. Like, I want it gone. But it's going to be difficult to do that. Also, is it just... Oof. Can you not play Rook takes B4? Or Knight takes B4?
So Knight takes B4 played. Yeah, that was... I had the same reaction. Like, wait, that's an A6. Okay, there's definitely... Lagno wouldn't just play this unless they're...
This Knight Rook takes B6 now. Okay, I mean, the pawn count is now equal. So that should be good for black.
But your king's in some trouble. Knight c7, there's rook b8 check. And you have to be really careful as, like, for example, knight c7 check, king h7, queen d3, g6, there's just h5. And I'm throwing take on g6, and your king's in big trouble there, unexpectedly. So she plays knight to b4, and there's no check. That's important. There's no check just yet. Huh, knight b4, one of those weird saving moves.
Definitely. I mean, this is... You play g6 always, but of course h5 is going to be an issue. But I think g6 is just something you have to do at some point.
Yeah, I think g6 is mandatory. Ooh. Knight g5, queen h5 mate. Oh, that's a thematic try to checkmate. You didn't have to take the knight there, but knight g5 check is one of those moves you play and get your queen to h5. So
I mean, this is still really, really good for white.
I saw a tactic, I got super excited.
I could hear the excitement in your voice.
But you know what I'm talking about when you get that knight g5 move in and you're just like so pumped because you're getting an attack.
Yeah, I mean, you see it more commonly out of like the opening or like with actually bishop g5 ideas. So knight g5 would have been definitely a really beautiful find. But that being said, this is still a very difficult position to play for black. This is actually just completely winning for black. Never mind, it's not just difficult. Completely winning for white.
Yeah.
This is the king's just completely out in the open. White is just going to be at this pawn. It's going to be a queen endgame, queen and knight endgame, I guess.
I feel like black still has some chances here because there's, I don't know about that move, but there's so few pieces remaining that I don't like this at all. Okay, you're probably knight g6 check. Oh, knight g6 first. Look, this still looks good. But what I was going to say, with so few pawns remaining, there are chances to hold a position like this, but now definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
Knight f8 check, take on e6. G4 also good.
Oh, everything's just so winning. Oh, wait.
I'm kind of worried about this D pawn at some point. I'm going to be honest with you. Queen c3 or queen c2, going to e4. Nice.
Oh, time. Yep, clock. Oh my god.
The knight's hanging on d4.
Oh no.
Katarina Lagno is too strong right now. Too fast too good is Lagno, and they start a new game. That's going to be canceled right away because the 5-minute portion is up. Chio, I want to take us back to one moment, that knight g5 check idea. It didn't matter, Lagno won the game. But around here, after black went knight c6, knight g5 check is that kind of thematic knight sacrifice, where if you take on g5 with the pawn, in comes my queen to h5, and you are checkmated, because your king can't possibly escape. And your king's best opportunity was to go king to g6, but it looks like your king just in a mating net over here.
That's a very nice tactic. That's honestly very, very nice.
Yeah, it was all forcing, honestly. Like, this, it's hard to see the end of it, but knight g5 check is a move that you're like, you just train yourself, you do enough tactics, you see it, and both players obviously give them more time, just show them the position, like, okay, knight g5 check, next question. But in the midst of a game, it's much more difficult to find, and Lagno still won a really nice game anyway, so there's no blame on her there. For Yifan, before we go to break, Chiyu, what does she need to do to come back in this match?
She needs to win games.
Words of wisdom like you've never heard before from the one and only. I think I found Nemo.
Yeah, I think you have. I think you have. I mean, I did casting before for the Chess.com Masters, and people kind of have gotten used to, my sort of tautology responses and like answers to questions. But in all seriousness, though, Yifan needs to play probably. I don't know. Katarina just feels so strong right now, but partly it's Yifan needs to play faster. And not get into these time situations. But once again, going to an even faster time control is not going to work out in her favor. But that aside, it's also like tactics is not working out for her today. It's
Agreed.
not. But that's not really something you can fix within the next 2 minutes when we go into the 3+1. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, she needs to quicken her pace. She needs to get better position at the opening, and Lagno is in just brilliant form right now. We're going to go on break. When we return, we will have the 3+1 time control of this championship match here in the FIDE Chess.com Women's Speed Chess Championship. Everybody, stay tuned. I feel like Yifan has some magical chess in store for us. We'll be right back. And Chiyu and I are back. We are ready for the 3+1 time segment of this championship match here in the Women's Speeches Championship. Chiyu, 3-game lead for Lagno. We all know the scoreboard. I'm really worried about Yifan's chances. During the break, I was trying to rack my brain, thinking of openings or ways she could mount a comeback. I really am not sure with Lagno in such good shape here after the 5-minute portion.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's just, Lano is playing so fast. She's playing so fast. She's playing so well. And, Yifan has been playing slightly dubious openings. So I think like a lot of changes need to be done, and whether or not she's trying to implement these changes within this like really short break time that she has had, if anything's going to happen to it. But, it's just, I don't know. Like Yifan needs to do something. What she needs to do, I'm actually not sure. Because it's not like you can just say, yes, let me just, improve my tactics right now for the next 3 games. It's not something that can happen. So what are some immediate sort of things you can implement?
Yeah, and I just pulled up that what they're playing for, 12 points for Grand Prix points and $3,000 for the winner of this match and $2,000 for the player who loses it with an 8-point in the Grand Prix. So we have liftoff. Let's go back to the live chessboard here. We see that, hey, your students will be happy. We have an Italian game.
Oh, yes. I like it. This is actually the way, this is actually what I teach everybody now. This is so, like, it's just so simple. And, it's one thing that to see Holy Fun play it, and it's another to, like, be playing such a really kind of, like, elementary sort of opening. I kind of like it. She's in a must-win situation, basically, for the next, like, few games, but she's keeping it simple.
Indeed she is, and we see here the knight comes back to g8. So this plan by Lagno is centered around the move f5, which you've expressed interest in other lines like King's Indian like of structures. So here, do you think that Black's f5 is actually that potent, or is the threat strong in the execution and White's just going to spend time thinking about it?
I think White is just going to spend time thinking about it. Like, from my experience, f5 is an annoying move, but it's actually, objectively speaking, not that good for Black. Like, it looks great. It has all the elements of an attack that you want as Black. Like, you think you can maybe push f4 at some point, or maybe you can take on e4, and then there's tricks along the f file. And I never deal with it well as White, but it's not supposed to be good. It's not supposed to be good.
Yeah, it's just, it feels like White has good control over the center here. The knight on d5, bishop on c4. Black is a bit cramped. I mean, this knight's at home on g8, getting ready for the next game. The bishop on e7 doesn't have a useful diagonal to work with. And so queen d3 played by Yifan. Just look at this bishop on c1. She could have developed it out to e3 or something like that. She's like, I don't need to rush the decision. The bishop didn't have a great home just yet. I would keep an eye out, Chiyu, on bishop takes h3. It's not working in the very near future, but that's an idea that you have to be alert for because the queen and bishop are lined up on that pawn. And, well, we're not getting that anymore, are we? Because knight g5 and trades.
I definitely think that she heard your words and was like, okay, let's not let bishop take h3 happens. I was gonna say, I think we saw this actually, this like almost exact position in a game between Sarah and her opponent on 2 days ago. So this position is definitely thematic.
Yeah, it is. I just prefer White's position, the bishop pair. We talk about this a lot. Like, what is the value of a bishop pair? Well, you can control the dark squares in a way that Black can't because you're the only one with a dark square bishop here. However, with the pawn structure so compact, I think that Black is really hanging tight in here. Shouldn't be too worried. And one idea that's coming to my mind, especially with this pawn on a5, is an eventual rook a3. So not anymore with the bishop on e3, but I was looking at kind of a rook lift, swinging it over to the king side.
Definitely. Those are very, very classic ideas. The knight on d5 is doing a good job, but what happens, you can't play c6, first of all, because of knight to b6, but there's always chances that you swap off on d5 and then you rook left.
Yeah, so knight f6 played here for that explicit purpose, challenging the d5 square, not playing c6 as you mentioned. There was that knight fork there, and even if there weren't a fork, just giving up that b6 square is probably one that black doesn't want to allow. So you get to keep this pawn on c7. d6 is well protected. b6 can't be taken by white, and so you kind of have to trade light square bishops. White no longer has a choice here. How? Okay, queen b3. She trades in this manner to get her queen up to c4 if you take. Would you trade bishops for black, or would you try to keep it?
I think, well, the answer got question. The answer got questioned. The question got answered.
You can't question an answer. So this was the answer. Are you questioning the answer now?
Yeah. But now, no, I'm just like more worried about Yifan just losing on time because she's been playing like, spending quite a lot of time on these kind of moves, and I feel like she could have just made faster moves and it would still have been like pretty decent.
But I like her position now. With this pawn on a5 is keeping the black pawn on b7 stuck in place. Rook a to b8 can be moved by bishop a7, kicking the rook out of place to win this b7 pawn. So it's a tough moment for Lagno. Thankfully for her, she's a lot of time. Wait, huh? Bishop takes f. Oh, queen takes f4. So you're hitting the f2 pawn. Okay.
Wait. Okay, never mind. I was gonna say something, but rook f3 is obviously not working.
I mean, it's a perfectly fine move, but she plays queen e2. I really want to keep my rook hitting b7 and my queen hitting c7, so rook f1.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think Yifan. I just think today's not Yifan's day.
I think she's gonna win this game though. Actually, I looked at the clock. Never mind. I didn't. I always forget to do that. It's like I'm looking at the board. I still like White's position. Then I look at the clock, and I'm like, yep, clock. Once more.
Yeah, clock, basically. I mean, I was just going to say, like, I think that White did really have to keep the queen and the rook on b3, and she would have won one of those pawns if she played rook f1.
Yeah, it looks like it. Rook f1 just protecting and then winning one of these pawns here. Let's go back to the live position. h4 just... I still really like White's position.
Actually, do you mind elaborating on why? Because I'm actually not seeing much of an advantage for White here.
So White has more control of the space. Look at White's rook on b3 is hitting a pawn. Black's rook is defending it. This other rook can come up to d3, and that's what I would do, and then maybe put it over to c3. And even if it's nothing concrete, like I just have continued pressure in the position. I'm threatening rook to b4, rook to b3. I can go rook f3 and trade off a pair of rooks. So White just has more ideas. She plays rook f3, and Black feels tied down. So even if, like, objectively, I mean, I don't have an engine on. The engine probably says, oh, just slightly better for White. I think look at the time also. Speaking of clock.
Wow, Katarina has actually let her clock run down. Speaking of Yep clocks. But, I was just going to say, this endgame is going to be really, really interesting because it's a major piece endgame.
It is.
And we don't see a lot of those. We've seen a lot of minor piece endgames, but now we're actually going to see a major piece endgame. And I like that.
Yeah, the dynamics are so different. It is going to be fun to watch. Look at this rook f3, trying to get queen c4 check and rook queen c4. This d5. So rook takes f8.
Oh my god, rook takes f8, king takes f8, e takes d5.
Yeah, you sort of create queen c3 or queen c5. You created a potential weakness now because the d6 pawn was protecting e5. I still think that Black is... Here's a big decision. She takes the pawn. She didn't have enough time to calculate queen takes d5, which would have changed... Oh, she plays queen c6. If you... Don't take on c6, I don't think. But
oh, the time. It's just like a matter of looking at the gate position versus looking at our clock, because this king endgame is... objectively speaking. Oh, b4 there would have been really, really, really interesting because then you just go for b5.
Oh, she had
very
that
classical idea, but it's once again it's just difficult to find these moves when. Oh, isn't this winning again?
Yeah, this is winning for White. Take on d4, and now you're king e4. Take on f4, king f5. The plan is so.
Oh, g5.
No, not g5.
No. Oh, okay, wait, that's not good. This is not good. Never mind. Wait, whoa. This is winning for Black. Wait, what the heck?
No, it's gonna be a draw. King g7.
Oh, yeah,
you
king
put the pawn on
g7.
h7.
Okay.
Wait, don't flag!
Oh my god!
No! Oh, she didn't flag, but that was on my screen.
But now it's gonna be a winning. Oh my god!
No, she's gonna make the draw. This is the pawn on h7 because you have stalemate tricks.
Oh right. This is classical. Yeah.
Oh my god! It showed on my end that she had lost on time, I think, but that's because it sometimes doesn't relate to the server and how I see it. But oh my gosh!
Right. This is a classical draw. Oh
Oh
my god.
my
I don't even play enough of these king,
gosh.
pawn, queen end games to know this.
I
Uh
don't know what hurts more, my heart or my head, but that was just a nerve-wracking moment there.
my ribs hurt from yelling.
So this is stalemate. Usually you'd bring the king in to help
Mhm.
out the queen, but you can't move the king without stalemating. So now the threat is to promote, and that's why this is just a draw.
I know, but Yifan needs to not lose some time as well.
Oh my gosh. I mean, she had your b4 move was excellent, trying to break free a passed pawn, and then she should just brought her king up to f. I'll show that afterwards. They have drawn by repetition, and there's nothing that black could do. I'm going to bring up the old board really quickly there, because that move g5 was one that cost Yifan a win. She had this position here, king takes a5. I'm pretty sure king f5, king b4, king g6, king b3, king g7, a5, and now after a take, a4, g5, just going to the conclusion here. You get a queen for black, you get a queen for white. White has the extra pawn. I think that this is winning at this point. It will take a lot of work, but nonetheless, white is the one pressing for the win up a pawn there. So a missed chance.
Very, very difficult to think like that during basically what has become what at that point has become a bullet match.
Yes, and to kind of foresee the 12 move variation that we were talking about, it's hard to when it's a pawn race, like one, two, three, three, four. Like, what the heck is going on? And when you have just mere seconds on your clock, you rush the decision. Whereas if you gave Yifan even a minute on her clock, maybe 30 seconds, she'd be like, oh, I actually am queening at the same time. And so then I'm up a pawn. So just a missed chance there for her. And now we get to a sharp Sicilian. So, Chiyu, I hope your tactics are in good shape right now. We don't have them just yet, but I'm pretty sure we'll see a tactical battle to ensue.
Well, I mean, this is just one of those positions where, wait, I was going to suggest knight takes a5 and then just never mind. I was going to suggest queen to f2, try to trap the queen, but it's not something you usually do in these kind of positions. I do really enjoy playing these as white, though. I have to admit, like, I like these for white. Oh, and actually, you know what? I'm not going to doubt myself anymore. Apparently, I can occasionally suggest good moves for Katarina.
Trying to trap this queen over an a5. So if you go b4, bishop b6, we've seen a queen trap earlier today. That was Sarah getting her queen trapped against Alexandra Kostenyuk. Queen f2 threatens this bishop b6 move. That's actually a nasty threat. The one downside of putting your queen on f2 is you may feel like your e4 pawn becomes a little more difficult to.
Oh, and she goes for rook takes d6. So I suggested knight to a5 because I thought that rook d6 works, and I wonder if knight takes, but if knight d5 right now because you trapped the rook, that was my original idea for black, and then I switched what I wanted to say because I thought knight d5 was working, but knight d5 doesn't work because of rook takes d5. So.
Oh my gosh, that's so freakishly complex. I play knight c6. I'm like, I don't care about the pawn you just took. You've opened up the position. I'm going to play b4. I'm going to try to win your a2 pawn. This was such a risky choice by Lagno, and maybe she's familiar with this position. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Yifan just like sat down and out of camera, so I'm going to take her off screen for a second. And wow, what a big choice there.
Oh, and this is why I did not want this to happen, because I think rook takes d5 is really strong.
So rook...
Right, it's just like, there's knight d5 ideas in these kind of Sicilian where you open up the e file. You literally sacrifice a knight. This is only an exchange for white to play rook takes d5.
And the king is just in the center, going to have a hard time. I like knight c6. It felt calmer. And it was calmer that would still lead to some aggressive opportunities. This position is just really complex here. Do you take on d5 and castle queenside? Get that king out of the center.
Yeah. And now we'll probably see queen f2 because it actually threatens bishop b6. Like, that's a genuine threat now.
Hey, leave my queen alone over there.
I'm going to get it.
Actually, that's a really hard move to meet. Okay, so let's think for a second. So queen f2 has the immediate threat of bishop b6. The black queen can't go to b4. You just go a3 and then trap. Or you don't trap the queen. You can go back to e7 then. But maybe there's b4, and if bishop b6, I have this like crazy move, bishop c5, saying I'll give you my bishop to win your knight. Whoa! Okay, bishop a3 played. Your knight on c3 is under attack because the pawn on b2 is pinned.
Wow. A move I did not see coming.
I like it though, actually.
It is good. It is very, very good. I mean, this is Holy Fawn's one chance. She's actually at 90 seconds, while Katarina only has 40. You don't see this very often. You don't see Holy Fawn up on time very often.
So, let's see. I want to play b4. I'm thinking about sacrificing stuff, like getting the d5 pawn. And with such little time on the clock, I feel like that even if objectively it may not be the best decision, going for some of these tactical lines can be very good for Yifan. She's down 3 games in the match. She's up 20 seconds. So going for the tactics, she plays b4, going for the tactics, exactly.
Yeah, and bishop b6, bishop takes b2. There's a lot of stuff going on here for sure.
Oh my gosh, I wouldn't know how to calculate this. And if I'm Katerina Lagno, she's really trying to work this out. I just don't think she has the time to do it. And this is a really hectic position.
Definitely. Okay, so bishop takes b2, king b1 maybe?
And then
because you definitely don't want to play king takes b2.
Oh, no, that results in a pretty quick checkmate. So you have to play king to b1. But even there's queen a3, and maybe white will survive in the immediate position. But I just think this has to be. Look, 6 seconds left, and their king is blown open. Just drop this bishop back to f6. Or bishop c3. Well, bishop c3 I don't want to play as much. Bishop f6. And then rook takes d5 coming. Oof. Couldn't be me playing this from the white side with 5 seconds left.
I mean, this is just intense. It's like 5 seconds on the clock. How are you even going to find all these moves? But Yifan is definitely thinking here, and this she knows she needs to win this game to have any kind of shot. I would just be so scared. Like I'm like going to get checkmated. A lot of things are happening on the board. I don't know what's going on here, but there is currently no checkmate. Material is almost even, which means that this is just better to play for black, in my opinion, because you still got a bit of an attack going on. White doesn't really have anything. But yeah, queen a5, bishop takes d5 maybe.
I mean, Lagno is playing really well considering her time trouble. Firstly, bishop c4 was good, and now I don't even know what move to play. Knight e3, that can't be good.
Ooh.
Oh, she blundered mate in 1. Queen b2 checkmate, and Lagno just like, there's nothing I could do there. No time on the clock. What do you want from me? What do you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think that time is honestly the biggest issue. Like, Hoifan is like kind of known for being a really well-rounded player, but she's also really good at the attack. Like a lot of her classical games, she just goes for the attack. And if she does more of that, I can definitely see this match swing in her favor, even though she is down 2 points right now.
That was, I mean, it just goes to show how important it is to get a lead on the clock. And we say yup clock a lot as a joke, but in all seriousness, she won that game both because she played some interesting tactical maneuvers, but mainly because she put her opponent in time trouble with how complex the position was, and Lagno wasn't able to survive. Now it's a 2-game match. You must be feeling more optimistic about Yifan's chances now.
Definitely, definitely. And, you know, we're seeing the Spanish again. The last time it happened, it didn't really go in her favor, but she had all the right things going for her. She just had to grab the chance, and maybe she realized what went wrong in the last time.
Gosh, I mean, what a crazy day this has been, and it's only going to get crazier. So taking on e5, we saw a knight takes e5 earlier in the match. We were both a little bit surprised by that decision, so I think that Lagno is going to take with the pawn here. Still has to be concerned about bishop c5, bishop b3. The bishops are getting a lot of open space here, and the rook on e1 barreling down at the queen on e8, which is, of course, there's a pawn e5 in between them, but there's always tactics related to that. So I kind of like black's position. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I'm liking black too, and I've said like a few times that this isn't actually supposed to bring anything for black, but when black gets the two like central pawns, it becomes a little bit scary, especially because after rook g8 or something, your king is like nobody likes having your enemy's rook on the same file as your king.
Right.
Like nobody likes that.
You know what's funny? Chiyo, I was just thinking about this. So we like the hanging pawns in a sense when they're on the king side. But when the queen side, we're all like, oh, the hanging pawns are so vulnerable there. They can be attacked and all this stuff. Oh, knight g5. Speaking of attack. Invite my knight in. Take my bishop on b3. My queen will replace it. I'm going for the f7 square. The b7 pawn's under attack. This looks very pleasant for Yifan.
Wow. I mean, yeah, you're completely correct with your assessment that hanging pawns on the queen side are less preferred to hanging pawns on the king side. But I guess at the end of the day, this isn't exactly hanging pawns since the F file isn't open. So I guess it's not hanging pawns in the classical sense. So it's just a really nice center.
Agreed. And this is a big moment for Yifan. Knight g5 feels good. There are other moves that look quite natural. Knight e3, for instance, bringing the piece in the game. It just allows black to play rook to d8, so it feels a little bit slow. And knight g5 is really aggressively going after this black king, which is in that kind of smother mate territory. The rook and the bishop are keeping the king stuck in the corner. So knight g5, to my eyes, look, she takes on e6 first. Maybe there's knight g5 now and then queen to b3, but after knight g5, there's queen g6, which would hit this knight on g5. Oh.
I'd be scared to do that. Oh, wait, what?
Okay, there's pins. We talked about how queen doesn't like being in the same line as a rook.
I mean, the king also doesn't like it, so I was thinking just queen g6 maybe.
I like queen g6. I just, so what? You attack my queen? Are you really going to take me on c6? I'll go take back with my queen. My queen could... can't speak. My queen patrols the 6th rank. That's what I was trying to say. And she takes on d4 first. But I feel like I don't quite love that as much. But maybe she sees possibilities in the g file that she says, let me just take on d4 and open this position up.
Maybe it's better to just play fast since Yifan only has a minute on the clock while she has 2. Just to play fast, keep pressure up. Like, she doesn't really need to push that hard, so just keeping things solid and safe. And now going with knight f4, going queen g6 maybe. Maybe you just play knight takes g2, honestly.
Knight takes g2, king takes g2, I think survives, but barely. I mean, it's like, that is scary to open up your king to this kind of attack, but knight g2 has to be considered. Queen takes f4 is a threat, we should point out, because the queen on e6 is not defended. So I can steal your knight, and knight g2 played.
That's nice. I like this. I honestly like this move, especially because Yifan, like in a classical game, once again, something different might have been played just because knight takes g2 is more of a, on the, Yifan has 30 seconds left. What is she going to do here? Is she going to realize that she can play king takes g2?
You're asking the important questions. What is she going to do? Should I think with either king or queen to put the knight on g3, but black's going to play f4. I feel like I would take with the king. She's 20 seconds. She just needs to pick one. I mean, she takes with the king. What? No, e4 played. King h1. Look at that move. You can't take the queen because the black queen's under attack on e6.
With 18 seconds on the clock, she plays king h1. Gosh. I could never.
That's why she spent so much time there thinking how to take on g2. She was anticipating e4, and so she just drops the king back to h1. And that is a queen sack that isn't really a sack because the queen's a queen g6, threatening to move the bishop. Okay, here's the queen on h5. Now the bishop moved, the queen's under attack. So how do you...
Maybe knight h2 was more accurate because then there would be no queen f3.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Bishop f6 hits the queen. The queen has to drop to h2 because the h3 pawn. Oh, now bishop takes d4. Thank you for that.
Oh, no. Not like this.
Not like this is right, but unfortunately it's just like this. And there's...
There's just no way rook takes g4 is this. There's just no way.
Yeah. Now the attack is too swift.
Wow. That is a very, very unfortunate. And with 3 points up, that we can almost say that this is going to be Katarina's. I mean, there's going to be probably 1 more or 2 more games in this time control, depending on how fast they can play this one. It's just not going very well today for Yifan. Agreed.
Though I'm not counting her out because she's down 3 points. She wins this game with black. Big if, because of how well Katarina's playing and how strong a player she is. If she can take this game, she gets the confidence, hopefully, and she can then go into a final 3-minute game. And if she wins 2 in a row, then it's a whole new match. But I'm ultimately with you. I'm trying to play devil's advocate, say that, okay, Yifan has chances. We both agree on that. However, this is a critical game.
And, going to this, which has sort of ended up in a rouser situation, which I kind of like as black. Yifan is playing for a must-win. She's literally playing this for a win as black, and that is just so scary to do. But, of course, being 3 points down, you, just don't have a choice. Just got to go for it.
You got to do what you got to do, as they say.
Exactly.
And Well, she needs to win the game. She has no choice but to do that. And Lagno is going for a line that I don't think is like that great for white. The knight on c4 worries me. There's knight takes b2 ideas. We saw bishop a3 in the last game. And if you play a3 ever to stop b4, I can just take. I can play knight a3 check as like a little joke here. I wouldn't do that. It's not really a worthy move. I don't know. I feel like black has a pretty ideal Sicilian setup.
Yeah. And also like, it's just Yifan needs to not use too much time because getting into time trouble scrambles is not going to help her chess at all, especially when she's in a must-win situation.
Knight a3 check. There it's played. But I think Katarina can just take on a3, put a bishop on b2 now.
Or rook takes d6, honestly.
I keep forgetting that pawn is hanging because it's not typical you see a knight on e7. So I see a piece on e7 and expect it to be a bishop, but it's a knight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, it's just, this is just, even without taking the pawn, this is just not good for black because your king's still in the center of the board. F5, sorry, is going to happen. You never can take on f5. And, I've actually considered just long casting these kind of situations, just saying goodbye to the center. But
I think she's going to do that. I think you're right.
Well, bishop takes e5 is not something you want to do because your dark squares will be too weak. But, it's just, this is like scary to play, right?
Yeah.
Like everything feels so unprotected.
But it's also a position where you feel like you should be much better for white. And then you start spending time. Look at the clock, where now black is up 40 seconds. And g5, trying to maybe get some kind of queen h5 check or bishop h3 to attack e6 makes sense. Here comes the knight to c4. Like, I feel like objectively white's position is quite nice. But then you start worrying yourself, is knight takes b2 and my dark square is going to be too compromised to allow this capture? If I play bishop c1, is that too slow? And then black castles queenside. So I think there's so many questions posed. And it's easier in a sense to play from black's point of view just because it feels like there's a more direct, I don't like that move at all.
I don't think it helped at all. For sure, knight takes b2 and then bishop. It gives black the tempo she needs to threaten a lot of things. Oh, wait, queen takes e6 is a move I forgot about.
Yeah, but the thing is, even queen e7 here, you have to trade queens as white because you're down a piece. So then your trade queens take on b2, but after the king takes on e7, you have bishop g7 check, you bring a rook to c8, you bring a rook to f8. You've talked about this a lot, about the bishops in the endgames. Here the bishop is going to be so good on the dark squares. You could plant it on e5, and black is much better there.
Definitely. This is just like, if you play queen e7, it's an easy way out. And I honestly don't even see what other options you have here.
You could play bishop e7, but I'm with you. That looks more obscure. So queen e7, she's probably evaluating how the queenless position will look like, and she plays bishop e7. She wants the attack. Rook c8 coming.
Okay.
Can't really blame her for that.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. It's like you said, it's easier to play as black because you have a very clear idea, and that very clear idea is to go for white's king. You can't do that if you don't have a queen on the board.
True, and you can always play queen to c4, for instance, if I can draw an arrow to the right square. Queen c4. Oh, you can't even take on c4 because I take with the b pawn, and then there's c3 check. So queen c4 was an option there, and still is. Oh, but then there's rook takes f8. She plays queen c3.
Rook takes f1?
Yeah, you might have to. I'm getting more concerned, though. These rooks come off. There's always queen g8 check available for white, so I don't like the inclusion of the rook trade. At this point, I don't really see what black can do about it, so I think you're right.
It's an attack, but it's really only an attack in appearance because you don't have enough pieces to go for it. If you could get your king out of center somehow, that would be great. But attacks really only work if queen g8, and then
you have to go bishop f8 because there's bishop h3 check, right?
Yes, exactly. And then there's queen takes h7. It's pieces are getting taken. There's 40 seconds on the clock. Who knows what's going to happen here?
But if you take on h7, there's bishop g7 with that mating attack. So rook f2 is good, and now queen g7, only move, protecting the bishop on f8 there and trying to get the queens off. If the queens come off, black is still better. Even though we thought she should have done this earlier, she still has time because nothing has changed in the position. Queen e7 now. And so I say, please, Katarina, please trade queens with me. Like, I beg you. I beseech you.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no reason for Katarina to do it.
Although, if you move the queen away, like queen g8, there's bishop takes e4. So, oh, bishop takes e4. I think you can steal this pawn. She does it.
Okay, well, bishop h3, bishop takes c2. It's an idea.
She has
Okay.
rook c7.
Yeah, because I think white maybe missed maybe just knight d4, like just bring the knight into e6 instead of the bishop. Because that bishop on f8 is not doing a lot of stuff, but at least the queens get traded off now.
Yeah, that's really important. So queen g8, bishop g8, you have rook e7, just barely saving this bishop because it's pinned. And, oh my gosh, king f7. Just go king f7 and trap the bishop. King f7, king g7.
10 seconds on the clock. Oh!
She allows the bishop to escape. I still think that black has decent chances here, but allowing that bishop out was obviously not ideal.
Ooh, that's not good.
And it's a time scramble. It's also a scramble to see if they can finish this game before the match clock runs out and then we get to the bullet. But right now, I turn my head to look at the match clock and then the a6 pawn was gone.
Yeah, I don't think this is. I think this will be a draw.
I feel like it's easier for black to play though because the bishops are so much better. King d6. Don't give that pawn.
Right.
Bishop e4. Protect
She's
everything.
worried about Huifan's time. This pawn is just marching down the board.
Knight takes d5 ensures that you make a draw. She plays it very smart by Lagno. This two bishop against one bishop is just a complete draw.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because you in order to checkmate with two bishops, you need to check the king, and this bishop just stays over here on this diagonal. And if king a3, this bishop b2, bishop a2 checkmate is the idea. But as soon as the bishop moves from c3, you go pawn to c4 to free up squares for your king. She also just moved her king this way. Smart.
Definitely. I mean, this game will just be a draw regardless of what happens.
Yeah, I'm trying to find like a sneaky checkmate. I don't see one.
Yeah, I think it's just not gonna happen. Especially with a pawn still on c2, which Lagno obviously has no intention of ever moving. Oh, wait a minute. No. Wait. No,
Yeah,
no.
You wanted to go king b4, king a3.
Yeah, but there's always like king b2 up or c3.
Yeah, so this is the draw. She's just going to move her bishop back and forth. If you're Yifan, do you make some kind of like bishop d3 check? White is too much time. I was thinking right, if you make bishop to d3 check is the draw if you just take it. So you can't lose the game. So do you just try something hoping your opponent makes some quick blunder?
I think this is the time when you start moving your light squared bishop around on the the light squares and just hoping that your opponent has pre-moved. But I think they are very experienced and won't let that happen.
Well, we see a draw. Katerina Lagno is just in fine form today. She continues to impress us. She's up 3 games as we head into the bullet. So, Chiyu, before we take our break here, I mean, does Yifan have a chance, or is Lagno with the 3-game lead just too far out in front?
I think Katerina Lagno is too far in front because we're going to the bullet, and Yifan isn't exactly known for a bullet, and Katerina has been playing spectacularly throughout. So I do think that we're starting to favor Katerina.
Agreed, and I see people needlessly making comments in the chat about if players are looking at engines. So before we go to break, and normally I wouldn't even address this, the players are in call with staff members. They have to share their screens. They have cameras on them, so that kind of stuff isn't happening, and it's not nice to even suggest it. So on that note, going to take a break. We will be back in a few minutes for the bullet portion of this championship match in the FIDE Chess.com Women's Speed Chess Championship. Alrighty, we are back. We are ready for the bullet portion. Will remain to be seen if the players are, because Katerina Lagno has a 3-game lead on her opponent Yifan and Chiyu. This 3-game lead, we've talked about it many times now. I feel like this is Lagno's. I think she's got this match. She's been playing so well. I don't see how Yifan scores 3 straight victories against her.
Yeah, and especially like in Bullet, you gotta win 3 games in a row, and it's just like that's very, very difficult to happen, even just based on how much time they have to play those 3 games.
Yeah, it's it's just so nerve-wracking when you're already playing a Bullet game, which is just at some point is not even about the chess anymore. It's more about the clock. Yep.
Yep,
And-
clock. Don't forget the yep in front of the clock.
I knew where it was supposed to go. I went around that. I circumvented it and put the yep at the end. And we have the game here. We have now Yifan on screen. She plays her little bishop's opening. Now it's kind of in the Italian. She'll play a4, same as we've seen.
Bishop's opening. Yeah. I mean, this hasn't been working out well for her though. And I know it's difficult to switch an opening in the middle of a match where you've probably prepared this for the entire match. But I feel like sometimes what's like the worst that could happen? Like there's nothing to lose at this point.
There's nothing to lose except for the chess game that you're playing.
That is true, which is unfortunate, but potentially being able to win by playing another opening might be worth it.
I don't disagree. Here she's taking on e5. She'll take on f5 next. That pawn on e5 will be a target. I actually really like how this one has turned out for Yifan. So what she's done differently this time is she didn't play a4 like she had played in previous iterations. She instead just went c3, normal stuff, open up the center, and now this pawn on e5 is in big trouble.
Definitely. I mean, this is basically everything you want out of this position. Black does not have the hanging pawns on e5 and f5, which also means that black does not have the potential attack, and white gets a really nice center here. Just everything that she could have wanted from this coming out of this opening.
Yeah, we saw that attack paid dividends in a previous game where the g file was open, the knight takes g2 move that you had suggested happened, and it went all downhill from there for Yifan. And here the knight comes to g5. We've talked about this going to f7. Here it's not going to f7, it's actually going to e4. Not yet, because the pawn f2 is in big trouble. You should play bishop e3 first, as she has just done. And now with the trades here, the e5 pawn is the weakest pawn on the board, and white's pieces are, I mean, look at this. You couldn't ask for a better setup.
Definitely. And, this is just like everything that I'm saying everything a lot. I guess this is my new catchphrase. I'm like, I always get stuck saying the same words over and over, and then someone brings it up, and I'm like, oh, I have to go change it. But then I'm like, okay, now I'm stuck on it more. But anyways, this position is good for white. Of course, I'm a little bit insecure about playing g3 just because it does create the weakness, but you get this chance to go queen h7. Black has to block with g6, and of course, the king is going to be really weak on h8. This is actually a very nice position. h5. This is good stuff. I can go threaten queen h7 next.
Queen and bishop lined up. I did bring the match clock up on screen here. We have about 7 minutes, 20 seconds left. And if Yifan is able to win this game and she up a pawn with a potential attack, if she can do that so quickly, she will have time to get a couple more games in this position. She needs to win. She has such a great position here. Her king is safer. She's up a pawn, queen a5, continue infiltrating. So,
yes. Sorry, no, go ahead. She's also up time.
Good. I forget about the clock so often that it's good to remind me. And we see that h5, trying to go h4, trying to open up white's king over here. And she has queen d6. So what about h4? Queen e6, that's her idea, to get to f7. That's dangerous. Okay, this is actually just winning. Because I think at some point black has to go knight takes g6, and then you just trade on g6. So she induced h4, because without h4, trading the queens doesn't, there's no pawn to take, and then you would lose g6. Now take on g6, you're up a pawn in the endgame, king f3, king e4. Oh, or go this way.
Oh.
She's just going to bring her king over.
Okay. Yeah, this is a completely winning endgame. I really like the conversion into the endgame.
Don't resign if you're Lagno. Keep playing. There's 6 minutes and 18 seconds. Play this out. Just go. You're going to lose, obviously, but waste
definitely
not
want to
20
finish the game.
seconds.
Yep.
And
I think she's wondering if she should keep going or... Oh, and she's letting her time run out.
Okay, well now it's a 2-game match with just under 6 minutes. That means Yifan certainly has time for 2 more games. But if there's a single draw, you want to make sure that you have time for a third.
Yeah. Um, okay, this is intense. Okay, good choice of 95 by Lano.
Who do you think is more nervous here? Who should be more nervous?
I think Yvonne should be more nervous, but sometimes it's like if you lose a game, your mental stability starts shaking a little bit. And that's
Yeah,
what I'm scared about for Katarina. Of course, it's we're here for a very intense match, and that's why, as commentators, that's what we're here for. But of course, there is a chance of Yifan making a comeback. There is. We can't deny that anymore.
right.
But based on how this game will go, we'll be able to make like some more of a
Yes,
accurate
sometimes
judgment.
keeping the lead is like the hardest thing to do because you're like, do I play safely? Do I just play my normal chess? You get in your own head. Whereas the person who's behind, they know they have to play for a win regardless. And at least in that regard, it makes it easier to play. However, this position for white, if you have them Roxy bind, even if nothing in particular happens, it's going to eat up so much of the remaining match clock. So a draw here is a great result for Lagno. I don't know how Yifan is going to press forward. Maybe some kind of b5, d5 type of maneuver. It just you sit on the position if you're Lagno.
Yeah. You just gotta play these games very objectively. Don't worry about your previous loss. Just keep playing, just keep making the best moves, and just trusting yourself because she's been playing so well. There's definitely something that's working out right for her, and she needs to keep that in mind.
For sure. And I mean, Yifan plays b5. It's a desperate play at this point. However, the pawn e4 is attacked many times here. So can you take on e4? Is it bishop a6 pinning the knight? There tend to be tactics in this position. She plays bishop a6. And a4 feels like the smart move, but then d5 happens to hit this pawn on b4 as well. So it's not so clear-cut.
Yeah.
Oh, watch out. Knight takes a4 is coming.
Bishop takes b6 probably has to be played just to like avoid knight takes a4, which means giving up one of your bishops. But
Right.
I think white's position is still good. Like you're up a pawn, got everything going for her. There's no reason this should not work in Katarina's favor
clock.
unless it was for clock, right? Clock. And also just the sheer pressure of playing this position.
And here comes knight to d5, and now the b4 pawn's hanging. Do you take... Now black has both bishops, and... Oh, queen takes e4, knight takes e4. Okay, I thought the queen was hanging on e2. It's protected. She does it anyway.
She plays it anyways. Oh, but then because then you get
Rook takes b4.
Pawn. But I mean, Katarina, if she draws this just does not make it any more helpful for white.
d3?
Sorry for Yifan.
Oh my gosh.
Wait a
take
second.
on e2.
Wait a second.
And rook a4. Rook a4 wins. Oh my gosh, Yifan wins the game. You take, you go king h7 and bishop b4 here, and you queen. Oh my god, Yifan has brilliant vision here.
Okay, so if she wins this game, she needs to do it fast. So Katarina's going to drag this game on for as long as she can.
And Yifan has 2+ minutes. She will get another game. Oh my gosh, we are about to see a 1-point match. Just when we thought all hope was lost for Yifan, we are in a 1-point matchup with 1 bullet game to go.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. This is the final game. Yifan needs to win it. I will put her on camera, put her on screen here for everybody. She's proven dominant in the bullet thus far.
I mean, this is not what... Wait. Why is Katarina's time just running down? Oh, she's disconnected.
No way. Okay, she's back.
Oh my god. But the 10 seconds, time difference now in a bullet, and she's disconnected. Oh, okay. I think she was... Wait, this is very, very...
You have me so concerned here. The disconnection, that can't happen. You can't have a disconnection in bullet.
Yeah, I mean, she's 20 seconds down and it's move 4. There's no...
Oh my gosh, she's losing her connection. She's 1 bar. Everything that could go wrong for her has gone wrong. Chiyu, explain this to me.
Oh my god. You just can't play bullet on, on this kind of internet connection. It's just impossible for anyone.
And especially against Yifan. You're
Like
playing.
you need like four bars at least against Yifan, maybe even 5.
And her connection is stabilized a bit, but she is down. She's half the time.
And it's only move 12, it's not even like this is
Whoa.
the end game or anything already. This is going to be a very complex game. This is probably like Black has this time decided not go for the F5 idea. It is Yifan's preferred opening, so we're going to see something quite complicated, I believe.
Yeah, and
okay, well, we just have to see Yifan play fast, I think. Just play objectively, good moves, and try to put pressure on Lagno because she is down so much time. If he takes F5 here would be killer. Oh, and she sees it. And then you got Queen E4, you got F6, you just have so many things here.
oh my gosh. And you can't go Queen D5 to trade queens. Bishop E4 wins the knight in C6. You'd love to get the queens off to avoid the attack. And 3, 2, 1. This is officially the final game of this match. Yifan needs to put this one away. She cannot afford a draw here. She needs to win. F6 played. Queen E6, take on G7. Oh my gosh.
I mean, Queen H4 though. Oh, okay. Well, never mind.
She didn't want to give up C5. I mean, it's such a hard move to play because you do protect your king, but you lose a queenside pawn, and the bishop is so strong. It's a great bishop.
It's a very good position for Yifan, but it's... Oh, Queen H5?
Oh, a blunder! A blunder! And just take on D8, take on E5 even? Oh my gosh, 2 extra pawns here. Chiyu!
Wait!
Don't... Oh my god!
Right. Oh my god, that was a good move.
That was too clever.
I would have slipped there. But that just goes to show how determined Katarina is for, she knows how to play bullet games.
Oh my gosh, that rook H2 move was like a brilliant attempt.
Just Queen X5. Oh!
She protects the rook. She protects the rook.
Queen...
Oh, what's that? Stick with the bishop. Oh my goodness. Chiyu, we have a tied match.
I never thought this would happen in bullet because Katarina has just been playing so much faster.
Well, connection issues will do that to you, won't they?
That's true. That is very, very true. I mean, definitely connection helped Yifan in this game, but it's just, wow.
That was...
Wow.
That was... eye-popping, mind-boggling stuff there. The connection issues, I mean, they really dictated the course of this game. Credit to Yifan for the comeback and for playing really well. It's when your opponent has lag issues, sometimes you're not sure what to do. You're like, wait, do I just play as quickly as possible?
Or do I like give her, some time because of good sportsmanship? But I think at the end of the day, when it comes to online chess, Yifan has also disconnected. I think
yes.
These DCs, these times, it's all part of the game, and that's what people need to keep in mind.
Oh my gosh. Let's so that game, it started to get away from Black, that was for sure. And that rook H2 move was like really brilliant by Lagno saying, please take me on H2 because knight takes G4 would be a check and win the queen. And Yifan says, I have 35 seconds left. I'm going to play king to G1, and then she converted this with ease, winning the knight. The rook was sacrificed just as a desperado, and we are about to have a tiebreak. Reminder to everybody, it is 2-game mini-match of 1+1, and if it's tied, then we get an Armageddon.
Yeah, well, I mean, this match could not have been scripted better, honestly. This has been the most intense thing. I think a part of my commentary so far on the Women's FIDE Chess Championships, but wow. That is just crazy because it's like, you don't expect it to happen, and now we're here. Yifan has made the comeback, and we didn't doubt her per se, but we had almost written her off as not having a chance.
And she's up in her chair, like she's been kind of not slouched. I don't want to say that exactly, but she's more like in front of her camera. She's focused. She's determined here. And we've seen this position a number of times by her. It's this Maraxi bind where you can't play for D5, you can't easily play for B5. And last time Yifan won this game by playing B5, a pawn sacrifice, getting this bishop A6, lots of tactics, not too much time. And Yifan, look how much time she has. Yep, clock indeed.
Wow, just up on like having more time than, even the clock has started with it. But this is incredible because she wasn't doing this well before. Like she was very objectively speaking, she was taking too much time on her moves, and now seeing her play this fast is definitely a change.
And queen takes c4 was actually may have been possible there. It's hard to take a pawn when there's like knight discoveries and your rook's in the same line as a queen. But here, I feel like black has a pretty good position. Wow, that is a committal move, giving up the f5 square. I think objectively a good move, but in terms of bullet Chiyu, giving the f5 square, we know how dangerous those knights can be.
Oh wow. I mean, like I said, it's very dangerous to give up the d5 square, but right now you can't actually go there because of knight takes d5 and just bishop takes d5 and your queen is pinned. So
she did it though.
oh, what the? Wait, whoa. Wait, am I missing something?
I guess the a6 pawn is hanging, so that's why she took with a knight on d5, and so queen takes a6 played, so that's why she gave up the c pawn for the a pawn. But look at the bishop pair, particularly this bishop on f2, staring down at this b6 pawn. It doesn't really feel that safe and sound for black. It's not a clean extra pawn, that's for sure.
For sure.
I don't even know what to do.
It's just
here.
like, I mean, there's double pawns on the f file too, so it's not even that. Oh my god, that clock is just running down. She's just letting time tick. It's hard for white. I mean, for black to find a move in this position, because like everything's tied down and rook c7 comes straight through.
Okay, bishop a6 was a nice move. Queen f5. Now queen d8 protects everything. So Yifan finding the saving moves just in the nick of time. And
but it's hard to do this continuously. Oh, queen d5 was going to win something. I'm not sure what exactly, but it's going to win something. I don't know what's going on anymore.
b6. There's, I mean, now two passed pawns over there. a5, play queen c6, queen c2 coming. Okay, she drops her bishop back.
Oh, I don't think you can play like this though. Like I don't think you can play the solid. Okay, that's a good move, I think. Yeah, opposite color to bishop ending. But of course there are queens on the board, which makes this so much more difficult and so much more complicated. But queen takes b4. Wait, queen takes b4?
Yeah, that's a freebie. I think it's gonna be a draw.
Queen takes b4. Okay, yeah, this will be a draw, which is good for Yifan because she's playing black and not so good for Katarina.
But in bullet, anything can happen, right?
That's true. you just gotta play till the end and just see what happens.
Queen g6 was a great move, by the way, because this checkmate on g7 was the threat, and now this checkmate on g2. She was just trying to trade queens and make sure that she would have no problems whatsoever. Here, both kings are not the safest. Watch out for queen takes g2, so she puts her queen back on the second rank here, and black plays h5. Is she maybe playing for more?
I don't think. Oh, okay. It's just like you gotta defend that G pawn.
Oh, down goes the h5 pawn.
Oh my god.
And queen h7. This looks risky. The g2 attack. Oh my gosh. So king d7. You probably have enough checks to get out of this, but your queen isn't coming back to protect g2, especially with this bishop on b4 under attack.
Not scripted, by the way, guys.
Queen d6, queen f8. Go on the yo-yo string and make the draw.
Oh. Not scripted.
Certainly not scripted, but it's going to be a draw, I think. Oh, queen g7 playing for a win somehow? No, queen f8. She doesn't want to make the draw.
She's going to take the draw? I think Katarina's going to take the draw.
She must, and there it is. There's
yeah, okay, there we go. Oh, God, okay. This is like every time we try to say a move or suggest a move, the next 5 moves have already been played, and, you know, we're just there trying to catch up. So bear with us here, chat. Bear with us.
Bear with us indeed, and we're going to bring Katarina Lagno on screen for this final game. We just had Yifan on camera. Let us bring Lagno into the picture here as, hey, it's an even match. This is the final game of this little mini-match here, which means that if there's a winner, the match is over. If it's a draw, we get Armageddon.
Armageddon!
I don't know if I can handle Armageddon. I'm already, like, jittery. G4, opening up the king, but stopping f5, and here comes the knight to g3. This is actually very principled. Whoa. So rook takes e4, then pawn d5.
This idea isn't actually supposed to work for black in most of these positions.
Yeah, because now you can just take on e5, and, like,
I was going to suggest d5, actually, because then knight takes e5, and then you got an even stronger center.
You're smart. d5 was nice.
You're smart.
She said, like, okay, I'm just going to take and I have a better pawn structure because there's these double pawns, but your move was actually even more clever. You don't have to capture immediately. Playing d5 would have kicked the knight. This still looks so strong.
It's just a good, like, it's just, like, You don't want to give up that center pawn for a doubled C pawns. Like you don't. You just don't. Rook A D1 if the queen just trapped.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's queen
Queen
G.
G6.
And F4, F5. Push that pawn through. Go for the attack. No
Go
fear.
in.
Oh, here it comes. Here comes the pawn. And honestly, this is... I'm going to switch cameras very quickly here. Bring up Yifan because we're liking her position. We'll see if she can convert this game. And she's working on it.
F6. Yeah, she takes F6. Queen takes F6. Knight H5.
Okay.
Okay,
Knight H5,
this is still okay. Man, it's just like white's king looks so unsafe, but you don't have any bishops to go attack it. Like knights aren't gonna march 5 squares up the board to go attack your king yet. But oh, I don't like that. I don't like that.
Whoa, wait, where did the H3 pawn go? So you can take F8. You're still better. You're up in exchange. But I don't like giving up that H3 pawn one bit. You're right.
But, you know, just go for the material. I mean, Yifan has already obviously made this mistake, so might as well just play fast and take the piece and just say, okay, well, we're here now.
Yeah, so Queen F4 to protect the G4 pawn. There is some kind of Knight G6 stuff. Okay, she was Queen F3 to avoid that.
Ooh,
H5.
Rook E2, Rook H2. Go.
That's nasty. But
or
H5,
Rook E3, maybe.
H5 was a smart move.
Wait,
H4?
H4.
Oh, no. They both missed
she didn't see it. Oh.
That knight was pinned. You're right. H4. We were both looking at it. It's you don't really think about playing H4 when you play H5. You're just trying to chop down the pawns here. And
definitely.
Knight E5 and the Rook E4. Knight to C6. You have to.
And then Rook D5.
Oh! Oh, that was a mouse slip. Oh, and she lost because of that mouse slip. Oh my gosh! And she smiles, but. Oh my gosh. To lose a game in that manner with all on the line. I mean, Rook D5 was her... Oh my gosh, she was clearly trying to go Rook to D5, and that's what happens in bullet chess. I feel so badly for her. I mean, what a comeback.
She played so well.
What a comeback. Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't know what to say there. I mean, to be fair, Lagno was dominating the early part of this match, and then her internet gave out in the final bullet game. So, like, I don't know what to call it. I wouldn't say it's karmic justice in the slight. I don't know.
I mean, I just think that it was a really, really intense match at the end of the day, and you know, internet's cut out, and you have mouse slips, and that's part of the game. But to be, I mean, just imagine the mental for both players, because Lagno was leading so much in the start, and then she slipped, and then Yifan was making a comeback, and then, you know, it came down to the final game. It was just a very, very intense moment for both. I want to put it that way. I do want to put it that way, but of course I'm not a player, and you know, who knows what's going on inside, what they're thinking about. It's just been so crazy, and they both played so like well, and it's been a long day, honestly, for both of them.
Yeah, they both deserve that match victory.
Sure. Like if we could give winners prizes to both, we would. But
we can't, and Lagno wins. We actually need to take a quick break because we're bringing Katerina on for an interview. Okay. So we'll return in a few minutes with the winner of this leg of this Women's Speeches Championship Grand Prix. Everybody, you should congratulate Katerina. We'll have her thoughts in a second, so stay tuned. We will be back shortly. And we return here with the one and only Grandmaster Katerina Lagno. First and foremost, Katerina, our greatest congratulations to you on what was a really fascinating topsy-turvy match. So how are you feeling?
Well, thank you. Um, of course, I'm very happy because I thought already I will lose the match because I was already. I didn't play well this last games, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. So just everything went wrong. So I I don't feel this time control, and I had a bad internet connection, so everything was not in my favor. Just and I was and I didn't I had a good position in my second game, I think with white, and I missed a trick and I lost. So but then okay, it was a mouse slip for her. Yes, as I think she wanted to play rook d5 in them, and just a mouse slip, and of course it's a big luck.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, this match could have been more intense, and of course the first part of the match you played really, really well, then blitz in the 3+1, the 5+1 did absolutely amazing. And then the game of course started slipping a little bit in the bullet, and like it was just so intense, like Yifan was making a comeback, it almost felt like. But the last two games were definitely really intense.
I was just exhausted
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't see already anything. I tried to be solid, but it didn't work, and so just
Yeah.
Well, Katerina, you were really unbelievable in the 5+1 minute portion, and you got up to a 3-game lead there. So, what was your preparation like? I mean, it couldn't have gone any better for you in the early stages.
my preparation. Well, I prepared some lines, but it was just a practical choice. It's nothing special, but I knew what to do, and I had a clear plan, and it worked out for me. But I I didn't have not the same story with 1 minute game. So
Yeah.
I don't know why, but and she started to feel the time, and she started to play faster and better. So, and that's also the difference between the start of the match and the end of the match. So I don't know. I have the feeling that I was dominating all the match with 5 minutes and 3 minutes control. But then I don't know. I feel like I was 200 players, like.
Yeah, I mean the of course your disconnect was really unfortunate, as was Yifan's mouse slip, of course. But
Yes. So you see, but I didn't lose this game. I was 20 seconds less, or 15. I don't remember. But I was, the point is you get nervous. You don't. I saw that it's gonna to be okay, that I will not lose the game immediately, all the game, but you get nervous and you start to make the moves, just not thinking. Okay, even before I didn't think, but here it was just collapse. And it was very important moment, so just but then okay, I got my chance in the last game.
sure.
Yeah, and actually, towards the end there, we were saying both of you were such deserving champions here. And you said something in the interview after your semifinal win that you're so happy that Yifan is back, that you'll get to play her more. Do you think you could handle emotionally maybe another match against her right now? If we started a new one, would you be ready to do it?
With a little break, yes, I can do it. With a little break, just and not 1 minute game. Just,
no. Yeah.
Anything you want, but not this time control. I just when when something starts to go wrong, you just don't have time to fix it. Just it's incredibly fast. I would like it to have +3. If I would have +2 or +1 or nothing, I would lose without a fight, because you have a strange feeling. You play, you were fighting all the match, and you put pressure and everything, and then boom, you just resign. So
Yeah, I mean, Hess and I were talking about like, once something starts going wrong, like everything kind of starts going wrong, right? Because it's like you have momentum, but of course.
Yeah, I mean, really, honestly, Katerina, I don't have too much more to say. I was really impressed by the way you played the longer time controls. Of course, in the bullet, Yifan, she suddenly found her form that we know she's capable of, but even still, you still came out on top, thanks, as you said, to your great performance in the longer time control. So, I mean, really, just, I have nothing but awe for the way you played today. It was such a great performance. So, congratulations once more.
thank you. Thanks so much.
Well, we'll let you get some rest. It was a tough match.
You don't hear me, yes? I have a bad connection, yes?
You had a bad connection, so I think you said thank you, but I couldn't really hear.
Yeah, we did hear the thank you. So, of course, we want to thank you very much for coming on to the interview. For playing such an amazing match today. Could not have been more exciting for us.
Yeah, you make our jobs a lot of fun with the way you play. Oh.
Did she disconnect?
She's still here? I don't know if she's here. But
all right.
At least she managed to fix her connection before the end. We'll switch away here. But thanks to Katerina Lagno, the deserved champion of the third leg of this Women's Speeches Championship Grand Prix. So really great result by her. You see she wins $3,000 and the 12 points. She now moves into a tie for second place with Valentina Gunina. And so it's pretty great to see that performance by her. She's the champion. And Chiyu, any final thoughts before we get on with our Sundays? And also, there's much more chess to be had today. But any final thoughts about what we saw in the entirety of this third Grand Prix leg of the WSCC?
It's been intense. I think every single day, every single game has made it worth it to wake up at 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning. And it's just been such a pleasure doing commentary with you, Robert, and of course with everybody in the chat. So thank you all so much for coming to third leg of Women's Speed Chess Championships. And these games could not have been better. If it was scripted, it would even be as exciting. There's no way. You have a disconnect, you have a mouse slip in the final. Of course, the mouse slip and disconnects are very unfortunate, but it really just goes to highlight kind of how online tournaments go.
For sure. And, well, I just want to remind everybody that the fourth leg will begin on July 15th in the round of 16. You can see the schedule on your screens right now. I will once again have the call. Unfortunately, Chiyu, our time as co-commentators is coming to an end. From this event, I'm sure we will be doing more commentary in the future. I believe for the fourth leg, I'll be joined by Alexandra Botes. So that will be starting on the 15th through the 19th for the final. Then the super final, based on the performance from the entire Grand Prix, will be on the 20th. But for now, I will say goodbye to everybody. We will raid the Chess Bras. Reminder to everybody to stay tuned for the coverage of the Leon Masters with Roland and Anna. It's Anna Muzichuk. There's so many Annas, and Roland is a Grandmaster from the Netherlands. You won't want to miss that action either, but for now, it's going to be the Chess Bras. I'm bidding everyone adieu. It was great to have you on. Thanks to our chat. Thanks to the staff. Thank you to our moderators. All of you have made this a success, and thank you most of all to the players and to you, Chiyu, for making this so much fun.
Thank you. I'm going to miss it. Thank you all so much for coming.
See you, everybody.